I'm Deputy Mayor John Santinella, and I am here to open this meeting tonight as the P&Z officers' terms have ended. On the agenda tonight, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In case of a fire, there are 2 exits from the chamber. The first is behind you. 2 double doors go down the stairs and move away from the building. The second are these 2 double doors to my left. You can exit these doors, turn left down the staircase, and exit the building. Could I have roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Kenneth Olinsky.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella is here. Terrence Lynch. Here. Frank Alimo.
Here.
Joseph Muley.
Here.
Walter Crizel.
Here.
Robert Anderson.
Here.
And Laura Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, we will hold elections for our officers. We'll start with nominations for Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Ken Holinsky as chair. He has been our most recent second vice chair. He's very fit for the job. He's filled in as chair as needed. He's a great leader. I think he's got great support for it, and he's shared many leadership positions in the past as well across various boards and town council. So
Second.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Are there any other nominations?
motion to close nominations.
Second.
Nominations are closed. Hearing none. At this time, can we have a roll call for Ken Holinsky for chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Yes. Christian D'Antonio.
4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
John Petronella is 4. Terrence Lynch.
4.
Frank Alimo.
Ken Olinsky.
Joseph Muley.
4.
Walter Crizel.
4.
Robert Anderson.
4.
Laura Anderson.
4.
And Ken Holinsky.
4.
Do you need to read a tally? Do you need to read the tally?
Oh,
Do we
I'm
need to
sorry.
read the
Yes,
tally?
10-0.
Very good. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I guess I have to move on.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
You want your water, John? Okay, at this time, we will continue the election of officers with, I'll ask for nominations. Oh, sorry, I'll ask for nominations for first vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for first vice chair as Christian D'Antonio. I feel that Christian has earned his stripes. He's been on the commission now for several years and has been a great asset to this commission and has done a great job.
I'd like to second that nomination, Mr. Chair.
Okay, it's been nominated and seconded. Are there any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Second.
Okay, nominations are closed. Can we have a roll call vote for first vice chair?
Yes, Ken Holinsky,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
John Petronella is 4, Terrence Lynch,
4.
Frank Alimo,
Christian D'Antonio.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Walter Crizel,
4.
Robert Anderson,
4.
and Laura Anderson.
4.
Okay,
The tally is 10-0.
tally
on that
10 to
vote.
nothing. Okay, congratulations, Mr. First Vice Chair. Okay, the third officer to be elected tonight is second vice chair. Can I have a nomination for nominations for second vice chair.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Linda DeGray as second vice chair. Linda has done an outstanding job with this commission throughout the years. I think she's our oldest member in seniority, and again, a great asset to this commission.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded for Linda DeGray. Are there any other nominations?
Move to close.
Second.
Okay, nominations are now closed. Can we have a roll call for second vice chair, please?
Yes. Ken Helinski,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
Four.
Linda DeGray,
4.
John Petronella is 4, Terrence Lynch,
4.
Frank Alamo,
Linda DeGray.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Walter Krizel,
4.
Robert Anderson,
4.
and Laura Anderson.
4.
Okay. Can we have the results, please?
10-0.
Okay, and the last officer to be elected tonight is secretary. And can I have nominations for secretary?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate John Petronella as secretary. He's very reliable as secretary. He's been our most recent secretary. I think the past 4 years I've been on the commission, and he has been undeniable in that position.
I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations?
I close nominations.
Second.
Okay, nominations have been closed. Can we have roll call for secretary, please?
Yes. Ken Helinski,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
Four.
Linda DeGray,
4.
John Petronella is 4, Terrence Lynch,
4.
Frank Alamo,
John Petronella.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Walter Krizel,
4.
Robert Anderson,
4.
and Laura Anderson.
4.
Motion passes 10-0.
Okay, congratulations. Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, next thing on the agenda is the approval of minutes for December 16th, 2025, the CV Subcommittee. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any revisions or things? Okay,
Chair, I'm going to abstain from that.
okay. One abstention?
I just have a, do we vote on subcommittee meetings here even though everybody wasn't there? Wouldn't they be voted on at the subcommittee?
Actually, these probably shouldn't be on this.
Good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, there's only
That's what I would
Yeah,
think.
good
The
question.
members that were there.
Sorry about
you're
that.
the subcommittee
Okay, so
should
we
vote
can
on
just-
their own minutes.
We can just skip over that.
Just, waive that, so,
Yeah.
yeah, just skip over it, that's fine.
Okay, next matter of business is the approval of minutes of December 18th Planning and Zoning meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any changes or revisions?
Yep.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, can we have, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are approved. Okay, town attorney report. We have the town attorney report here. Anybody have any questions or discussions on the town attorney's report?
Very short. Which is a good thing.
Okay. Guess we can move on then. Okay, next item of business is the town attorney's report.
Zoning.
Oh, sorry, zoning enforcement officer's report. Bear with me.
None this evening.
Okay, at this time, we allow public participation for any subject which is not on our agenda tonight. Does anybody wish to say anything to the Planning and Zoning Committee on a subject not on our tonight's agenda? Anybody wanting to speak today? For a third time, anyone wanting to speak? Okay, no one wants to speak in public participation. Any bond releases? Any bond releases? No.
Not this evening.
Okay, continued public hearings, PH 3136, that is still remaining on the table.
Correct?
The next one is public hearing 3139 South River Street. Can I have a motion to remove that from the table?
So moved.
Okay, second? Can I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Gentlemen, okay, can you just all introduce yourselves and make sure the microphones are turned on? Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me?
Good evening, Mr.
Good evening.
Chairman.
Welcome.
For the record, I'm Attorney Paul Smith, 27 South Main Street, Windsor Locks, Connecticut. I represent the applicant, South River Realty LLC, Matthews Landing LLC, which are the applicants. To my right is Richard Pinkman, who is a member of both LLC applicants. To my left is Jason Adams of Bowman, which is a national engineering firm. He has prepared as a PE and a traffic expert a traffic report, which was submitted to the commission. Our Levesque Associates has done the mapping for us. And last time we were here, Felipe Gravo, the professional engineer, was present. He's not able to attend tonight, so you have the three of us at this point. So one of us, I'm afraid it might be me, has got to figure out how to operate maybe I'll give it to you, Richard. So just by way of very brief refreshing, because obviously we had a rather lengthy hearing at the December 4th meeting of this commission, so I'm not going to try to sort of go over the old ground. I'm going to try to, I'm sorry. So, as you know, this is property on South River Street. It's 4.9 acres, right next to the boat launch. The property is currently zoned TD1. We are now requesting a rezone to TD4 with the idea to develop it for apartment, multifamily use. And as you may recall, the commission continued this hearing really to have us look at the issues of the road width, the issues of fire and life safety issues, and traffic. And my client, along with his professional engineer and along with Mr. Adams, did look at all of those issues. And so there's a couple of things we'd like to address specifically to those. First of all, we had the professional engineer create a plan that we thought would be, and again, these are preliminary plans. Can we find that in the, I don't know, Georgie, can you pull up the colored?
I have the keyboard. You have a keyboard.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in you.
What'd we do without you?
Yeah, exactly.
You want your rendering is what you want?
Yeah, you know, the colored rent, there, there, yep, that's the one. Thank you. So we did sort of go back to the drawing board and look at how we could create a multifamily use on the property, which would minimize impact to the street and at the same time enhance fire and safety. This is, again, a preliminary plan. It's not obviously a final plan. But what it does, as you can see, is it creates one entrance to the property near the boat launch. eliminates a second driveway at what would be the southern part of the property. And so you'd have a multifamily building that basically is adjacent to the boat launch area. And then in the front, you would have a number of smaller multifamily buildings, each which would be essentially form a streetscape along South Street, South River Road, or South River Street, rather. But all the parking for those, all the entrance would be to the extreme, again, to the extreme north of the site where you see the one entranceway. So the idea would be also, by doing that, to sort of address Krog's issue, which is, can we do this in a way that maintains a streetscape along South River Street? So this is a plan, again, my client, I think, would embrace this sort of plan. And again, it does also preserve along the river, a river walk area, in fact, widens that and may create more opportunities in there when we get to if we get to a special use permit / site plan approval. So we think this is a better plan. And we did two things. One is, obviously, we retained Jason here to look at traffic. And the other thing is, Richard has met multiple times with the fire chief, and he wrote a report which is now part of your record, and basically has indicated that this sort of plan would not create any life safety issues. And if you saw the chief's report, which I think is part of your record now, he does speak and address the Asnuntuck tunnel closing and how that would impact this. And his conclusion there is any safety issue resulting from life safety, fire issue from the closing of that is a very low impact, because that Asnuntuck tunnel apparently at this point does not really serve as an effective means of ingress or egress for emergency vehicles, ambulances, fire trucks, and the like. And his conclusion in the report was, based on the comprehensive limited information and concerns for traffic access, water supply hydrant placement, emergency vehicle access, and aerial apparatus considerations, it is my professional opinion that the proposed South River Street project does not present any fire safety-related issues if the proper codes and standards are followed. And one of the things this sort of design does actually is it allows two access points, which is either South River Street or the parking area, if you want to sort of have emergency access in this area. So it actually improves it. We're appreciative of his report. I think it supports our plan. And we would certainly ask the commission to give it every consideration. Again, Jason also, Mr. Adams to my left, has also done a report, and I'll have him speak to it at the conclusion of my remarks. So I think the important thing for us is this is in a TOD area. It's near the train station. The town studies over the multiple years have called for higher density in this area where it's near the train station. It's something that the state is very interested in accomplishing. We understand that this is, this is a residential neighborhood, but it's not really a classic single-family home residential neighborhood. It is not. There are many multifamily units. Many of the units on this street are not owner-occupied. They're investors who rent these units out. And at the same time, I would emphasize and Richard has a presentation just to, again, for the record, show the area. It is a very challenged area of town. It does need something to sort of move it forward. And our position is this is a logically good step for my client. It makes sense for him. We think it makes sense for the neighborhood, and it makes sense for the town. And at the same time, the commission, which rightfully had concerns about traffic and fire, we believe that we've presented evidence that strongly indicates that those issues are not a factor in terms of this consideration of the zone change. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason just to give you an overview of the traffic report he prepared. Jason, thank you.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Jason Adams with Bowman Consulting. We were hired to perform a traffic assessment of the project and surrounding roadway network, which is shown up here on the screen. South River Street, as I'm sure you're aware, is a very low volume, narrow roadway. Today, in the peak periods and the weekday morning peak hour, weekday afternoon peak hour, it serves about 25 to 30 vehicles total. So a vehicle on average every 2 minutes or so. We completed as part of our review an assessment of the trip generating characteristics of this project using data published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So that's the industry standard way to understand how many vehicle trips could be expected of a given project. A project of this size would be expected to generate somewhere between 60 and 80 vehicle trips during each of those weekday morning and weekday afternoon peak hours. So in the weekday morning, have about 50 vehicles exiting the site. That's about a vehicle every minute or so being added to South River Street. Similarly, in the weekday afternoon peak period, majority of vehicles returning to their homes. Again, about 50 vehicles across that peak hour. Again, about a vehicle every minute on average. Those vehicle trips are really just traveling between the project access and the intersection with Main Street, about 500 feet to the north. There's really no reason for a vehicle to travel south on South River Street or continue past Main Street. So the majority of those vehicle trips, or really all of those vehicle trips, all the existing trips today on South River Street, turn right onto Main Street, head towards Route 5, head towards I-91 and town. Looking overall at the combination of the vehicle trips that are on South River Street and the number of vehicle trips we'd expect to be generated by this project, that we don't expect that the project would have any kind of significant impact on existing operations or vehicle safety in the area. We also took a look at the plans prepared by R. Levesque and feel as though the project access has been designed to provide safe and efficient access. As the attorney went over here, we have moved it as far north on the site really as we can. It gets it closest to the Main Street intersection, removes the impact the project could have from other residences along South River Street. And of course, some of those vehicle trips already traveling on South River Street today are part of properties that would become part of this site. So those vehicle trips would actually decrease south of the site because there'd be fewer residences, fewer vehicles traveling past the site driveway. So overall, we'd conclude that the project would not have a noticeable impact on operations or safety.
So with that, I'm going to, Mr. Pinkman also has a brief presentation that he has put together, that a PowerPoint, so we're going to let him do that. And the thing I would emphasize is, and I think it's in Jason's report, is, we still are open to the possibility of us providing additional right-of-way or easement if the town wants to, in the future, improve South River Street. But it's not critical for our function in the sense that all ingress and egress to the site will be to the north of that. But we've committed to doing that, and I think that's part of his report that says we can also certainly do that if the town at some point wants to, make road improvements to South River Street. I'm sorry, go ahead, Richard.
Okay. So I'll keep this as brief as possible. Thank you for hearing us again. I appreciate it. So I'm Richard Pinkman, once again, co-owner of South River Realty. I've lived on South River Street since 2015, member of that community. So obviously, it's, we've talked about so far, we're requesting to change the zoning from TD1 to TD4, and we're not asking for any type of project or site approval at this time. And I just highlighted the purposes of TD1 and TD4. TD1, the purpose is to provide walkable mixed-use neighborhoods consistent with historic patterns of development, encourage the development of public amenities along the Connecticut River waterfront. And TD4, the purpose of TD4 is to allow a variety of housing, food services, lodging, minor retail, marine waterfront activities in direct proximity to the planned rail station adjacent to the Connecticut River Fresh Brook. So obviously we're concentrating on the housing portion of that. We're requesting that our properties be rezoned to TD4 to provide that opportunity for denser housing in the TOD area. We're asking for it simply because it's 500 feet from the train station. It's the location. It's a TOD district, and we're following the goals set forth in the Plan of Conservation Development for Thompsonville and the reports that have been published for decades on what the town feels this area should be. And we think that TD4 is a more appropriate zoning for this location to achieve those goals. So this is the big thing for me. So I'm a member of the street. I've lived there for a long time. Every report that the town has published, these things come up. And it's very obvious if you walk around the neighborhood. We have multiple vacant storefronts, multiple abandoned buildings. We have a homeless encampment. We have homes for sale that are priced significantly under the median values for other areas of Enfield. A lot of graffiti. It's not my opinion. It's definitely in the town published reports. So here's just some of the examples. If you walk a quarter of a mile away from this site, a lot of vacancies. If you can see them, a lot of buildings in disrepair, a lot of vacant, abandoned buildings. I mean, this is all within a quarter of a mile of, where we're proposing to do this. So that's the project design. And I just wanted a quick few slides to just readdress some of the concerns that were brought up last time. So one of the concerns, somebody asked if a fire apparatus, including a ladder truck, could fit under the Main Street underpass, which is the underpass that is still going to be open. And yes, so Thompsonville Fire Department confirmed that every single piece of apparatus, including North Thompsonville's ladder truck, which is the largest in the fleet, can currently fit under the Main Street underpass. And there are plans to make that underpass even larger. In addition, most apparatus, including Enfield EMS's own ambulances, cannot use the Asnuntuck Street underpass as of right now. So its closure is not going to affect the fire and EMS ability to access South River Street in this development. One of the problems, South River is not a very wide street. Cars have a hard time passing each other now, so wouldn't denser multifamily housing in this area create even more people on the road? So one of our solutions was, again, we're happy to widen the street. We're willing to do that in front of our properties to make that wider at the northern end. And we put the entrance to the development at the very beginning of the road. So we literally have taken the road out of the equation. And as Jason stated, you're taking the houses that are there now out of that equation and moving the entrance. So you're actually going to have less traffic traveling down South River Street, which is the narrowest part of South River Street. And just to confirm, I actually went out there with a tape measure today just to confirm the width at 22, which is the beginning right after the boat launch. And that width is 20 feet, 6 inches. So cars can safely pass there. The issue is as you go farther down the road, it gets narrower. So the big concern was life safety. So a couple of people have said we've had fires on the street, and we have in the past, and people have been trapped because of that. So the ironic part about it is, so right now the hydrant locations are all on the east side, which is the railroad side of the property. If we have a fire at any point at any one of those properties, and firefighters have to lay LDH, which is large diameter hose, across that street, because that's the only water access, everybody will be trapped. Nobody will be able to exit. And that's regardless of whether this project happens or not. The ironic part about it is, with the design that we've presented, fire trucks are going to have room to get off of the street to address fire and EMS related concerns. So right now, and I can tell you as a firefighter and a paramedic, our road is kind of a nightmare when it comes to fire and EMS. If a fire truck pulls on the road, nobody can get by. If an EMS ambulance pulls in certain parts of the road, nobody can get by. There's nowhere to turn around, and that traps people in. And it's a nightmare for firefighters and paramedics to back out and leave to enter and exit that street as it is. We would be providing a turnaround and ample room for fire and EMS to access patients and residents of the street. So it's actually going to significantly improve life safety with a design like this. Right now, it's not great. So one of the things that was brought up was if a tree falls and blocks our one entrance. So that can happen regardless of this project, and we're hoping that the solution is to work with Amtrak, the town, and the Thompsonville Fire Department to ensure that trees with the ability to block the underpass are cleared from the area so that there really is no possibility for this type of incident to occur in the first place. And as Jason said, if there's more traffic on the street and there's an accident, could that block our one entrance? And to that, it's a three-way stop. It's a very low speed. A major accident with blockage is a very low probability of occurrence there. It's literally a three-way stop. If it was a highway, if it was a high rate of speed type of situation, be a totally different story, but it's a stop. So that's a very low probability. And Thompsonville Fire Department is located, I believe, a quarter mile to a half mile away from it anyway. So it's a very fast response if there was an accident to clear the area. As you know, the Regional Planning and Development Division just said they had no apparent conflict with the plans, which Paul talked about. And yeah, the only other thing we wanted to say was to emphasize some of the things in this new design was that it's not a final design, and the point of this was to show that we're very flexible to making sure that if we get to a site plan in a design phase, that we are flexible to make it as safe as possible, to reduce traffic concerns, traffic flow, to widen the street, and also as far as aesthetics and tradition of Thompsonville, the buildings can be designed in a way that everybody is happy with. And this is just an example of another developer has used this as those little blocks in that plan, those down the street. This is what they look like. They're about 60 by 60 feet. And this is just an option for something like that. In addition, we had just closing. We had 2 ART meetings in the past for this project, which I know people have talked about, with no red flags from any of the department representatives. And just as a bonus, South River Street currently has no capability to allow a school bus to pick up and drop off the kids on the street. A project like this would allow for a turnaround, so we could actually have a school bus finally come to the street. And we've had multiple conversations with multiple town departments, including police, fire, traffic, EMS. And we plan as we move forward, if this is approved, that when we get to a design phase, that we're going to continue those conversations so that we're designing something that is safer and everybody is really happy with from a public safety standpoint. And we love the opportunity. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Staff?
Good evening. So the applicant did a pretty great job of summarizing the concerns from last meeting, so I'm going to skip the repetition there. We did receive a couple of public comment letters via email that you all have received and are all a part of the record now. A couple of things to keep in mind. This will be the first significant zone change for Thompsonville since 2018. The applicant summarized solutions to all the concerns that were brought up at the last meeting. I don't have much else to add unless there are any questions.
Lori?
I just want to reiterate that, again, this is an application for a rezone. It has nothing to do with what is proposed. There's no requirement whatsoever for an applicant to show any development proposal at all. What you should be making your decision on is whether or not you believe that this zone would be good for this area. Are the uses compatible with this area? And I just want to reiterate that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on P and Z have any comments or questions? Linda?
The applicant keeps saying is the traffic is not going to be an impact. There's currently just 16 units, so you're actually adding 124 more units. And I understand what they're going to widen this area and they're going to do this and that. But when you go from, what was it? Like 30 in and out in a day to 900 in a day, according to your report, I'm just looking at that. That does create a problem to me, because we can't just look at your 8 properties and say, oh, let's just make the TD4 to there. We also have 100+ units already approved on North River Street and another 100+ in the future coming. So we're talking almost 500 units trying to get out. I'm just talking about the apartments at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's a traffic jam. To me, I mean, I've sat on 91. I've sat at other places when a lot of the apartments are trying to get out to go to work. So I do see this as an issue. It's a quiet street. There's currently 27 homes. I know there's multifamilies. I don't know exactly the exact number, but there's 27 buildings currently now. It's a quiet street. I went down there today. I was driving down there. I had to pull in somebody's driveway so somebody could get out of the street. Yes, you're going to widen your area, but there's still going to be a traffic issue. And that's my biggest concern, is traffic trying to get in and out in the morning and coming back. And God forbid we have anything that happened like in East Palestine, Ohio. And that is just not a commuter line going back and forth along the river. That's just a concern that I have. Thank you.
Go ahead, would you like to answer?
Yeah, if I could just elaborate on some of the traffic concerns raised here. We are in receipt of the traffic study that was prepared for the 33 North River Street project. So we've looked at the intersection of Main Street and South River, North River. I mean, it doesn't make sense for us to try to put a project in a location where people couldn't get efficiently from their homes to places of business and schools and everything that they'd want to do, right? So like that's when I was brought on by the team, that's primarily what they're looking for. Because at the end of this, if the zoning change goes through and we get to the point of submitting a site plan, we want to have a marketable product where someone would want to live, would choose to live, right? So that's a big part of what we're doing on behalf of the team here. A lot of times, intersection operations, roadway operations, they're measured in grades of level of service. So at an A to F grade, just similar to what you'd get in school. Level of service A, very rarely do you see a level of service A. It's very low volume roadways. The intersection of Main Street and North River, South River operates at a level of service A today. So that's very minimal delay. Like if you looked at all of the intersections in town, very, very few would be level of service A. This is one of them. And when we look at the trips generated not only by our project, but by those known projects, the ones you referenced, that intersection is projected to continue to operate at level of service A. So if you look at along any roadway in town, most of those driveways have much higher volumes than what we see on Main Street and South River Street. That intersection in a peak hour, it's serving 100 to 150 vehicles total with our project in place. An on-ramp onto I-91, that's 1,000+ vehicles in that hour. I mean, it's like a sense of scale, which makes us comfortable. That's my job, is to say, is there a problem? I don't believe there is, and I tell the team, I don't think there's a problem. This is a good location for this size project. Might not be a good location if they wanted to triple the number of units, but that's not what's on the table, right? This is the correct size project for this area, given the information that we have. So I feel comfortable as a professional to look you in the eyes and say, I don't think that there is going to be a traffic jam during those peak times. There is enough capacity at that intersection to serve not only what's there today, but what could be there in the future should this project move forward.
Okay, and we'll, yeah, Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The intersection that we're talking about, North River, South River, and Main Street, it just dawned on me. You mentioned the 33 North River Street.
Correct.
Traffic study and your view of the whole area. Did you have the luxury to look at the state or the railroad's new design to that underpass and the widening of it before you made your calculations, or are you going based on what's there now? Because I haven't seen the design, but I've been in meetings, just yesterday, in fact, and I know the big blocks are coming out and it's getting lowered, and I'm not sure the dimensions.
Right.
But it's going to be different. So my question is these studies based on the actual or the new?
In a way,
If you
they're,
can, but
they're
thank you.
right. They're generally based on both. So we have the actual numbers today, the number of vehicles that on a
No, I mean the design. What?
correct
The
correct.
roadway.
And then what we look at is what we know to be coming in the future. So it could be this project, could be the state project to change the the tracks and the underpass there. The fact of the matter is that given both North River Street and South River Street, there isn't really an additional draw to come onto that roadway, save for a development such as this that's going to bring people to their home, right? Neither roadway goes somewhere else that would increase, even if you improve, or when you improve that underpass, there's not going to then be additional demand from vehicles coming from town, from a regional roadway into the area. So when we look at it, that intersection itself, the operations of it don't really change because there's nothing that's changing the intersection itself, right? It's just improving the underpass.
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying in its current stage, the current intersection is good. Not even taking into consideration the widening that's coming, that we all know is coming.
I'm speaking just to the intersection itself, good.
Right.
The underpass certainly can be improved, right? That's a great project for the town, for the regional network, for the rail, right?
Right. So that's going to even make it better than it is now.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Yes.
Anyone else on the planning and zoning have any questions or comments? Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up to the public. I have a list of speakers. First one, yeah, you guys can step back. Steve Cogtella. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Steve Cogtella, 2 South River Street. Is that on?
Yeah.
Can you hear me
I
okay?
can hear.
right.
We're good.
Right on, Steve?
Yeah, it is
We're
down.
good, yep.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This public hearing is in regards to a request allowing expansion of TD4 zoning south of the Barnes Boat Launch with approximately 5 acres of property. We know that TD4 allows for much greater density and uses than what currently exists. Density equates to more housing units and more people. If this section of South River Street was appropriate for TD4, it would have been designated that years ago when town planning staff, Planning and Zoning Commission members, residents, and a town consultant spent hours and hours discussing the rezoning for this entire area. All decisions for this area to determine appropriate locations for type of TD zoning were made. All decisions were made with the proposed train station in mind. This location was deemed inappropriate for TD4, with TD1 fitting the bill. When I watched the December 4th meeting, I sensed a couple of commissioners seemingly on board with this zone change proposal. The thought process being that the applicant would again have to come before the commission with a detailed site plan of any construction to be considered. The commissioners would then have the benefit of input provided from town staff, namely engineering, police, fire, emergency services, to help you make an informed decision. I don't know what report Mr. Pinkman had and his attorney, but the report I have shows a little bit different. So regardless of how professional and meticulous a plan put before you, the town departments will not be able to green light any proposal located within this expanded TD4 zone if approved. It is not about a site plan. It's about where it's located. That location consists of property west of the Amtrak rail line. Town departments have already provided the information necessary to make an informed decision about expansion of TD4 zoning. That information is detailed in a letter from town staff to the Department of Transportation, which I provided to the commission in my previous email. You should have it in your packets. The letter states how the closure of the Asnuntic Street Tunnel will impact the safety and security of existing residents, never mind bringing hundreds of more housing units and people to the area. I don't recall much discussion of this regarding approval with the North River Street project, most likely because it was already zoned TD4 and vacant land. However, allowing expansion of the zoning cannot be overlooked nor should be allowed. Ask yourself, how does allowing more density to this area make any sense when town professionals are saying there will be a problem with safety and security with the further restricted access resulting from the Asnuntic Street Tunnel closure? Just because this area is labeled so-called TOD, which I've been hearing this word every time somebody speaks here, doesn't mean that everything else that should be considered is now exempt. To put this in perspective, you're taking Bigelow with 471 units and putting it on the west side of the Amtrak bottleneck. 460 units with commercial being proposed, 156 approved already on North River Street. From 6/1/24 to 12/22/25, 18-month period of time, police responded to 705 calls for service in Bigelow. Fire, 167. And emergency medical, 134. This isn't the type of activity that we want in our neighborhood on South River Street. As responsible commissioners of planning and zoning, it's obvious this application must be denied. I don't think you'd want any type of activity like this in your neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Patrick Gaskell. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes. Patrick Gaskell, 94 South River Street. First, I would like to read into the record a statement from an Enfield resident that couldn't attend this meeting tonight. This is Kelly Himmler, 10 Hartford Ave. Dear members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I do not live on South River Street, but I am familiar with the neighborhood, and I know many of the residents there, including Mr. Pinkman. They are good people who take great pride in their homes and their community. Changing the zoning, as requested, would introduce a commercial element into what is currently a small, quiet residential neighborhood. It would fundamentally change the character of an area that is truly picturesque and well cared for. I respectfully ask the Commission to consider this impact and not approve the proposed zone change. Thank you for your time and consideration. Kelly Himmler, 10 Hartford Ave. Now, my comments. I'm here tonight to oppose the change application for South River Street from TD1 to TD4. Now, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. I do not agree with the plan to zone around an extremely small parcel of property, 26 South River Street, existing in TD Zone 1, which will be engulfed by the TD4 zone. This will negatively affect the property values of 26 South River Street, and I believe the rest of TD Zone 1 left on South River Street. 56 South River Street is a house that has become on the market now for 37 days and has dropped $10,000 from the asking price and is not sold yet. I have to wonder if this is the result of the zone change proposal in front of you. I would hate for this commission to make a mistake with this zone change. I propose to see what happens with the North River Street project. I'm not opposed to that project since they are starting with an open contaminated lot in Phase 1 and extended to an abandoned contaminated building to remove or reuse in Phase 2. I don't believe this TD1 to TD4 zone will change, TD1 to TD4 zone change warrants for the removal of existing homes of historical pattern of development this area was built on in Thompsonville. Let's wait to see the impact of North River Street project has on the west side of the tracks. So now I ask the commission to consider not allowing this zone change to happen at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeffrey Travis?
Good evening. I kind of didn't anticipate really speaking. I didn't prepare a speech.
Yes, could we have your name and address, please?
I'm sorry. Jeffrey Travis, 92 South River Street. So listening to the proposed changes, so they're talking about resident traffic only, but have they taken into effect, you have snow removal, you have trash, you have Amazon, school buses, you have the boat launch people, you know. Currently, even with that main entrance exit, even if you have your Chevy pickup truck with a boat trailer, you just can't take that right going under the bridge. You have to kind of go over the yellow line. So that's going to cause more issues. And then also take into effect that because of the railroad tracks, you're going to have the Amtrak track maintenance people and their trucks. They are there 24/7, and they need to maintain their tracks. So they have to get their vehicles and their crew to maintain those tracks. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joe Saxton?
Joe Saxton, 76 South River Street, and I'm here to, I don't approve of this zone change at all. When you buy a house, you look at the zoning. That's kind of an important thing, and that's what I did, but then they changed the zoning to TD1. Now that was done with the Department of Transportation too at the time. I haven't heard so far if the Department of Transportation has been involved this time. I know, I think this is just a town thing now, but they've been talking about a train station here for 20 years. I read that McMahon report, and there they had a bus trying to jam underneath the tunnel just to get it through because the earmark was for buses. Then they went to all this newer stuff, and we still don't have a train station. From what I hear, it hasn't even gone out for a bid with Amtrak yet. So what's all the hurry here? Especially that was for a zone change. And that's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, sir. Jeanette LaMontagne?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jeanette LaMontagne. I live at 64 South River Street. And I believe we've met the demand for high-density housing around the transit center. Since the last meeting, I looked at existing and future and proposed apartments near the railroad station. Here's a quick rundown. At least 300 apartments at Bigelow Commons, an approved apartment complex on North River Street for 156 apartments for Phase 1, followed by another 156 apartments for Phase 2, It's my understanding the Enfield Square in the future may be developing 465 apartments, supposedly to start in 2026, and those residents can take a shuttle to the rail station if they wish, and is hoped to eventually have an apartment complex on the old Strand and Lamagna properties. Downtown Thompsonville is chock full of apartments, with Prospect Street having 17 buildings containing apartments. Church Street has 20 buildings containing apartments. Martin Street has 4 buildings containing apartments. Asnatuck Street has 9. Pleasant Street has 28. Russell Street has 4. And Alden Avenue has 9 buildings containing apartments. Keep in mind, many of those buildings contain multiple apartments. That's only a few streets that I looked at. Doing a rough count of apartments to support the transit center, I come up with 1,077 new, modern, young professional type apartments in existence within the next few years. Plenty of potential train users, I believe. I have not included in that equation the many, many existing multifamily home apartment buildings in downtown Thompsonville. I'm not against common sense development, but in this case, common sense says enough is enough. You have the power to preserve a lovely and quiet little street, which is home to many people who own and love their homes. I know that there's some rentals on our street, but we also have probably at least 12 owner-occupied single-family homes there. Please consider the numbers I just shared. In the next few years, if the town of Enfield feels more apartments are warranted to support a transit system, they can address that need at that time. But in the meantime, let's not put the cart before the horse and unnecessarily overdevelop the whole Thompsonville area. Please vote no for this please vote no on the zone change. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne Suzor.
Joanne Suzor, 86 South River Street. I am a house owner. I've lived in this house my entire life. That's 76 years. 76. Third generation child also occupies the house. It's always been very quiet. People come up and say, I didn't even know this place existed. I didn't know this street was here. And we say, shh, don't tell anybody. We don't want this change. We don't need this change. And all of the statements that you've heard from the people from South River Street tonight back that up. We don't want it. We don't need it. It's not the time for it. Maybe in the future, once the train station is finally built, if that ever happens. 20 years I've been hearing about it. Hasn't happened yet. Really don't think it's going to. Not for a long time anyway. Amtrak. Front of my house, front of everybody's house. They own, I believe it's 10 feet back from the rail. So my house sits on the road, right on the road. There's, I think, a foot between the road and my porch. And it's 15 feet to the other side of the road. 15 feet. If a car comes toward you when you're trying to go down the street, you stop and you're courteous and you pull over. We all do it. Every one of us pulls over to let someone else go by. But Amtrak owns that to the road on the other side. I don't know if he's going to manufacture land to widen the road. Well, he can tear down his houses and widen the road down there, I guess. But I don't know where else he would get the land from to do that. It's a very difficult place to make those kinds of changes, too. The Main Street overpass is 12 feet 5 inches high. I know this because I went down to measure it because I ordered a shed from Cloder Farms, and I needed to go find out if they could get that shed under the underpass. And luckily, they have trucks that they can sink. And it went under. I was amazed. He showed me all the things it could do, and I was amazed. And I've lost my point. But I guess I just don't want this to happen. I don't think it's the right time for it, and I definitely don't think it's the right place for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Reed?
Dave Reed, 84 South River Street. I just want to say I disagree with the zoning change. Everything that's been said here tonight so far, I agree with. We just can't have this on that small street. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Monique Levesque?
Good evening, Monique Levesque, 26 South River Street. I want to start by thanking you all for having us here for this open discussion this evening. I had written a letter to once again express that I am not in favor of this zone change, and here's why. In the December 4th meeting, as we heard this evening, we heard more than once that this hearing is only for zone change. But it was Richard Pinkman and his attorney that introduced the project that is really what's in consideration. I'd like to address that we understand it's a zone change, but without this proposal, we do not need a zone change from TD4 to TD4 from residential. This project is still, I think it's a third draft, is still unnecessary. We do not need these type of improvements to South River Street. I would obviously be the person who is most impacted, but it's not just me and just a few neighbors that are not on board. I have included the letter from the town's Enfield manager's office that included statements that were not in favor of closing the Isnuntuck underpass. Although this may appear redundant, I cannot reiterate enough that the concerns from the town of Enfield staff are the same as the residents of South River Street. These repeated issues have not changed, even with the change of the plan. But I'd like to share now, with the closing of the Isnuntuck underpass schedule, these same concerns now far exceed the concerns of the past tense what-if situation. Now the underpass is closing, and we're left with increased risks. For those of you who are not aware, I'd like to make you aware of the concerns that were actually in my attachment A in your packets. From the Director of Economics, they identified parking conflicts and security issues. The Director of Emergency Medical Services warned of decreased emergency responder access. Enfield Police Department noted that the restricted access would prevent residents from evacuating by vehicle and hinder emergency services. Thompsonville Fire Chief, there was a group of us that also met with the fire chief recently, stated that further limited access would negatively impact public safety. Assistant Town Engineer recommended maintaining and improving Isnuntuck Street access for the safety and well-being of residents in essential services. My point of sharing this now, these are the same concerns of danger that will be increased. The limited access will be greater risk with another, I don't know how many more units he just changed it to tonight. Decreasing safety will be at greater risk for the residents in EMS, fire, and PD. The increased traffic, increased amount of people, increased amount of cars with less access to come and go could all pose a bigger threat to our community. I have referenced, like I said, that letter A for your review. I would like to continue to address 3 additional arguments that I have regarding this project. Richard's attorney, Attorney Smith, had stated that Richard is from Massachusetts and had been living on the street for approximately 10 years. When Richard started buying additional properties in addition to his home, he understood that he purchased in a residential region. Again, to reiterate, it was left as a residential for a reason. The scale of this type of proposal is excessive for an already compromised area. Their sound bites also included the train. I have lived on South River Street, well, it's been almost 26 years. It will be 26 in March. The town has been talking about putting in a train platform since before 2000 when I moved here, and it has not happened yet. We also heard on December 4th hearing that the train platform was once again pushed out, so please do not reference the project to be coherent to the train platform. There is not a train platform in Enfield. There is no place to put a train platform, and the project being pushed out is probably still not funded. Finally, I would like to address housing. As Richard and his attorney both referenced, the state wants housing, but failed to recognize for the record that Enfield is already exceeding the recommended housing for the town of Enfield. My attachment B is a report that I created by the attachment B is a report that was created by vendor Goldman in York Planning and Design. Although lengthy, coming in at 21 pages, the most important and relevant piece of information was the last sentence that states, based on this report, Enfield is providing its regional fair share of affordable housing with a total of 835 units, creating an overage of 13%. Since the report has been published, I also provided a list of new and/or proposed housing with another 1,300 units. That was my attachment C. I also provided a list of existing housing, which clearly shows over 1,900 existing units of apartment complexes. Some may have been included in the original 835, but for sure, it shows significant growth. So kudos to the town of Enfield, who have already demonstrated an above-average performance in providing housing and surpassing state expectations. The purpose of me bringing it up, the proposed development is unnecessary, particularly in a location with this restricted access. And to close, I urge you to prioritize the safety and well-being of residents when considering this zone change. The current residential zoning should remain in place as previously voted in 2019. There is absolutely no compelling need to alter the zoning for this development. Thank you for your attention to these concerns. And also, I'm willing to provide documentation electronically to those who have not received it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joan Knoll.
Good evening, Joan Knoll, 60 South River Street. We lived on South River Street for over 30 years. If you've all been on that street, it's narrow. There's not a lot of space. It's quiet. You wouldn't want someone coming in and building all these apartments. I have 2 dogs that I walk all the time. You have these apartments coming. All this traffic with the new apartments, the ones that are going to be on North River Street, Where do we walk? Are there going to be sidewalks put in? Am I going to be safe going under the only underpass with all that traffic? It shouldn't happen. I mean, he came to me on the street and we talked, and I told him that there's no way that I would want that to happen. It's a small, small area. So I hope that you all, if you can put yourself in our shoes, if you could see the street, if you've all been there, you wouldn't want this to happen. It's a small, small area. Too many people. Where are all these people going to go for recreation? I mean, at Bigelow, you have indoor pools, an outdoor pool. What is going to be there? People that are going to go on the river and they're going to walk. Where are they going to walk? In our backyards. I don't want that. None of us want that. We just want to maintain what we have. If he wants to build a few multi-houses, 4, 5, whatever, that's fine. But to have that many units on our street and that many people, all those children that'll be in those apartments, where's everybody going to go? And then the people on North River Street. I won't even be able to walk my dogs all the way down the end of North River Street because there'll be so much traffic. Where do we go? So please, see where we're coming from. We've been there a long time. We adore where we live. And it's just too much. It's too much for that area. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak? You were up once, sorry. Anyone who would like to speak for the first time? Yes, ma'am.
Karen LaPlante, 166 North Maple Street. Regarding the staff report section POCD findings, quote, the applicant's narrative claims the zone change application aligns with the strategies of the POCD, particularly in Chapter 5 for enhancing residential development. These strategies emphasize promoting housing diversity and multifamily housing development, where the narrative claims will support a more efficient land use and contribute to expanding Enfield's housing stock, end quote. It goes on further to note that this area is also a target investment area where, quote, whenever possible, investments in public infrastructure and community facilities should be prioritized and targeted into that area. For example, expanded and improved sidewalks, improved and expanded parks and recreation facilities, and complete street initiatives should be priorities in this area, end quote. How does this zone change anything here? I don't see an expanded park or recreation facility happening within the zone change. The boat launch, it abuts the boat launch. In 2018, these people and others came together, these people meaning the citizens, came together and helped determine what should be allowed in certain areas of Thompsonville. They helped create the TD zoning map. South River Street residents and property owners have shown during this public hearing, comments tonight and on previous public hearing, the previous public hearing date, they do not want the zone changed to accommodate a much larger housing development that does not fit the, quote, historic patterns of development on South River Street, end quote, as required. This developer purchased multiple properties along the river, knowing this zone did not allow housing units larger than 2-family residences. He could develop very nice, high-end, single-family residences, but probably doesn't think they would sell. He could develop very nice 2-family residences, townhouses, and sell them or keep them as rental units. Planning for the transit station was considered, and areas that allow multifamily housing has been planned for. Those areas are on your zoning map. If you don't have a copy of the zoning map, you should have it so you can see where those type of buildings can be built. The red and the yellow, and there's a lot of red on there. In 2018, there are areas where the type of development this applicant wishes to do are allowed. He should have purchased and invested in those areas instead of trying to change an entire neighborhood. If this zone is changed, it is a slap in the face to all citizens that hope to be heard during public comment, public hearings, and public input as requested when planning the future of Enfield. Why would one developer's wishes be more important than proper planning, citizen input, and the voices of residents that have invested in our neighborhoods? Please vote no on this zone change.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for the first time? Yes, sir.
For the record, excuse me, Patrick Talarita, 11 Pearl Street. Excuse the mask, I'm not feeling well, and I didn't want to contaminate the room or the microphone, but 'tis the season. But I did want to come down here this evening because I always want to be involved in the conversation on the advancement of Thompsonville. And I'm here tonight to speak in favor of this zone change. I commend all of you for what you do, and I think you put a lot of effort into it. And I would like to say that what you've done in the past few years is starting to prove to get some excitement going in Thompsonville. I haven't seen more development and proposal meetings regarding Thompsonville than we've had in the last couple years that we haven't had in 20 years. So what you're doing is you're offering advancement. You're showing that the town has opportunity. And I think that's really what you're doing here this evening in considering this zone change, is you're creating opportunity. You're creating opportunity for investment. I think you're creating opportunity for consideration of the different types of development that can take place down there. I think that you're presenting opportunity for improvements to the area. I think you're presenting opportunity for increased in value of the neighborhood as well. I think it meets with the properties that abut it, not maybe to the south, but certainly to the rest of the area. I think that you are doing another thing that's being proposed as part of this plan, is that you're presenting opportunity to get back one of our natural resources that we don't have a lot of opportunity to enjoy, and that's the Connecticut River. Right now, it's kind of cut off from most of town, and this would allow for greater access, I think, for residents within the community to have access to the river, which is a great resource to have. So opportunity is, I think, what you're talking about here. And I think it's very important to consider that you will have opportunity to decide on what goes there and how it goes there, to what degree. You will take into consideration when you get into the specifics, when a developer comes before you, as to what you can approve or deny based upon the conditions that they come before you with and what you're trying to achieve. I think right now what's being spoke to is the broader sense of, is there a health and safety issues there. I think the chief's letter that you received after meeting with both the residents and the developer speaks for itself, that the chief actually has said, and the fire marshal has said, that they believe that this will be an improvement to the area as opposed to a detriment to the area. So taking the considerations that you have before us, now, I certainly respect the residents that live down there. They have passion for their neighborhood. It's been a quiet neighborhood, as they've talked about. They enjoy their neighborhood. They invest in their neighborhood. So, I believe they come before you with the best of intentions, but things do change. And I know it's human nature to be fearful of change. But sometimes we need to embrace change. We need to move forward, but we have to go forward and understand the facts before we make decisions. And all this is doing, I think, that you're voting on here tonight, is opening up opportunity. You then have a chance to decide if that opportunity or what's presented to you is right for that space. But it broadens what can happen there. That's what you're doing. I thank you, and I encourage you to vote in favor of this.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for the first time? Okay, is there anyone who would like to speak from the audience, from the public, for a second time? Yes, sir. Just state your name and address again, please. Thank you.
Patrick Gaskell, 94 South River Street. Could I have you pull up the proposed site plan on the screen? Is that available? Yeah, I understand the concept, but the concept engulfs the zone change, which the white elephant I was talking about in that room is that white block that you're blocking around. That white block there will be still TD1. Now, it's existing right now as TD1, the whole section is TD1, and you're gonna engulf that whole area with TD4. I mean, do you believe that's acceptable? Would you want that in any of your neighborhoods? Would you want that as a precedent in anywhere else in this town? Because you're going to put a precedent right now with that area as engulfing around an area. I just don't believe it. I don't see any sidewalks going down. I mean, we're non-conforming right now, so we don't need the sidewalks. I don't see any sidewalks going down South River Street where in front of Mr. Pinkman's property where we're going to have access. Is there going to be no sidewalks now coming down? I don't understand that one. You'll have to discuss that, but that's part of the zone, the zone change too. The traffic increase, I'm not sure if it was factor in that all the Gen Y and Gen Zers, that's all they do is grub hubs. Everything's delivered. So that's going to be another bottleneck coming down. All these deliveries for the potential of 460 units plus deliveries. That's just an additional traffic. I see a lot of traffic. I live at the end of South River Street, and I have a private turnaround. I have cameras on there, and I see a lot of traffic, and I pretty much track everything that comes down that street. There's a lot of traffic that comes down that street to turn around. That's all there is to it. And I see an increase in traffic with this facility put in because, especially the way the design is right now, you're going to bypass that. Someone's going to bypass that. I mean, what are they going to have? Huge signage? This way, enter here. So I see people bypassing, and it's going to be an inconvenience for them, especially when there are going to be Amtrak. And when Amtrak does work on that the whole tracks, the whole area, and they're always there because there is a switch off, and that always has problems there. And they have 7, 8 trucks that are parked there. So there's going to be definitely an increase of traffic. The area isn't against change. We want the right change. This Thompsonville area has had change in the past. It's called urban renewal. That was not a good change, and we want to avoid that at all costs. I think Thompsonville is scared of change only because there really hasn't been a vision, because there's been empty lots from urban renewal since 1979 when they destroyed so many buildings down there. Every fire that you see, there's all the fires in Thompsonville. Look at all the empty lots. There's so many empty lots around there. There's so much potential for building, and now they want to take down more of history from Thompsonville with these older houses. I live in an old house, 1847. They're older houses, and we're going to put up a big, massive, brand new apartment buildings. I don't agree with him, but thank you and I hope you consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Monique Levesque, 26 South River Street. So Patrick just mentioned the additional Ubers for the additional residents, and someone else also mentioned the additional Amazon deliveries, and no one yet has thought about the additional guests, so that's still more additional traffic that, while we're on the line of that. And then while we have this picture up with the proposal here in that little white spot, who is me? They talked earlier about the width of the street, and they said it was 20, but I measured also. In front of my house is only 18 feet, so no, two cars cannot pass at that point going by each other. So talking about the width, widening the width of the street without access to my property is going to be kind of awkward, I think, to have it go wider, then skinny, then wider again. It just doesn't make sense. Like, they can't really widen the street with my house right there. I have no front yard to take. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, yes. Yes, ma'am. Fontaine, Ms. Fontaine?
I'll be really quick. Jeanette LaMontagne, 64 South River Street. Mr. Talarita said something about, you should look at the facts. And I think the facts have been laid out very clearly by Steve Cogtella, Monique, and Pat Gaskell they really did their homework. They had a lot of facts, and I think you should base your decision on that. I pray and hope that you will respect the people on South River Street who've been living there for many years and vote this down, please.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, gentlemen, would you like to address any of the concerns?
Yeah, maybe a few comments.
Okay.
We won't be too long. Again, for the record, Attorney Paul Smith representing the applicant. So obviously, the issue of traffic and safety on the street, two things. Obviously, we submitted a report from Jason here, and also we have the fire chief's report letter. But basically, our plan would be to not use South River, except that the extreme southern end is northern end is an access point. So we'd actually be reducing the traffic on South River Street. And the reason for that is, other than our entranceway, there would be no reason for any of the occupants of our multifamily to go down the street. There really isn't. So what we're doing, as the fire chief said in his report, basically is improving the situation, not making it worse. And I think the idea that multifamilies units like we're proposing aren't incompatible in these kinds of areas is just wrong. It's not the vision that we see from the state in terms of their legislation. It's not the vision actually you see even in the town's documents. Someone mentioned affordable housing. This is not an affordable housing project. It's a market rate apartment project. There is a need in Enfield. There is a need in other towns and in the area generally, northern Connecticut, for multifamily units. This not only addresses that need, but addresses it in an area where you're within walking distance of which will be the Enfield train station, and again, meets all that kind of planning criteria. Details like, are we going to have sidewalks, those sort of things on this property, I mean, we'll address those if we ever get to the special use site plan stage, and we'll work with the town to try to make it a project that works, and if sidewalks are part of that, I don't see that as a problem. I really don't. Again, if widening the street or giving the town a greater right-of-way on our property is part of that, I don't see those as issues. I mean, those are really in the final planning stages of a site plan / special use. We're not going into anybody's backyards. We are interested in, as you can see from our plan, conceptually developing along the riverfront, and again, working with the town to figure out how that's going to be. Is that going to be a public access thing? Is it going to be just accessible to our unit owners? I don't have the answer to that. That's something we would work with the town on and figure out how that can play out. But we're not interested in going into somebody's backyard. This is developed strictly on our property. So we think it fits very reasonably in the area. It fits very reasonably with its location near the train station. I think the critical issues of traffic and safety we've addressed, and you have expert reports on that. The fire chief's report directly addresses the Asnuntuck tunnel closing. And although he's not happy about that, he's indicated that that wouldn't impact this kind of development in terms of diminishing its safety and life use. Jason, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on terms of traffic from what there were for comments. I don't know.
I guess I could just add in that the traffic data that I presented is the most up-to-date data. It does include the newer, right, influx of Amazon and Uber. This is data that is mostly from the 2020s. I think that obviously there are more Uber drivers delivering food than there were 10 years ago, but there's also fewer people that go out to eat, and maybe there's fewer people that make a trip to a supermarket. It's not like it's just a pure addition. Amazon is obviously everywhere at this point. Some people make fewer trips to shopping centers now. I mean, you can see that give and take too. So the data that I'm presenting when I'm talking about what we would project a development like this to bring forth in terms of traffic volume, it does include that data as best we can do it. Not to say that I might be off by a little bit, but we're responsible to present data to you, to the town, to the state of Connecticut, as best we can with the industry data, and that's what the numbers that I've given and are included in our report, just as a point of clarification.
Okay, thank you. Staff, do you have any further comments, questions?
Just one comment. Just a reminder, when you make your decision, if you do decide tonight to state your findings for or against, and then to find a POCD finding. My memo had a POCD finding suggestion about Thompsonville being a TIA identified target investment area. The department comments, and then the effective date being included in the motion, should you decide tonight.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have any comments or questions? Frank?
Yeah, I do. And through the chair, I don't know, to staff, I think I have a little bit of a problem with the whole process, that this being a zone change, and staff, maybe you can help through the chair if I may communicate. And it's with like the testimony and evidence we're getting, that being that we're in a zone change process. For example, Ms. Levesque kindly supplied us with comments from different staff people. And did you have an opportunity to review that, staff? So I go to the back page and it has town attorney Zeppo, the name signed on this. So to me, that's like 6 years ago or 5 years ago.
That's town
Manager. I'm sorry.
Town manager.
That's 5 or 6 years ago. So was this stuff pulled from another conversation and brought over? Because let me finish.
Yes.
It looks like this was a part of another conversation, and then what really makes me think about that, the letter we got from the fire chief totally contradicts what this says down here. So we're having testimony and evidence entered on a record, even this public hearing and last public hearing, but we don't have a rebuttal process because it's a zone change. Now, if we brought Aaron, the head of EMS, in here, and we say, Aaron, this statement that you wrote 5 years ago was entered into a public hearing for a zone change, do you stand by this for this zone change? I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like this is an ex parte public hearing. There's no, to be fair and transparent to the applicant, how do you get the answers to all the evidence that's put on the record? Usually when there's a zone change, you don't have all this information because it's not required. It's not even required for the applicant to show us what we're doing. I just have a difficult time with this process. It's not fair. It's an ex parte public hearing. That's what I'm calling it. And I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't mean to be mean, but the process is incorrect. This type of evidence, if it's coming on a record, there should be an opportunity for Aaron, the head of EMS, the traffic sergeant that wrote something 5 years ago, to say, is your testimony that's being put on a record tonight relative to the zone change? They're talking about the tunnel being closed 5 years ago. That ship has sailed. That thing's getting closed no matter if this building goes up or not. So we have a document, and I appreciate Ms. Levesque entering it for us, but now tonight, she enters it tonight when we get a letter from the fire chief saying the opposite when she enters? Can't be. It can't be. I'm sorry. We can't. This testimony should not be on the record. Or we need to approve this for transparency and let them come back so we can get rebuttal. We need rebuttal. We need testimony to rebut or testimony to confirm so we can make an informed decision. Thank you.
So, Lori and Georgie, is this a legal issue now?
So this document that came in was actually part of the conversation between initial design phase of the train station parking lot configuration for Bigelow Commons and then across the street. This was written in 2023, not that long ago, by the past town manager when the town was trying to come up with reasons to help with the CTDOT design ideas. And this was only when the train station plans were at 30% design phase. And if you notice, in the engineering comment, though, it's all about the closing of Asnuntuck Bridge and how the town was against that idea. But there are two solutions should that bridge close that the engineering comment included. But regardless of this letter, it's not about the project itself. It's about design phase for the train station when they were going through parking lot design. So that's where that letter came from. I mean, the only other thing that I wanted to point out was, I mean, you have a difficult position to be in as a land use commissioner. You take in the application information, you listen to expert testimony, you're balancing testimony from the public, and then out of all that testimony, you have to make a very important decision at the end. So as staff, we can only advise you as far as we can in terms of how the application does or does not satisfy the requirements of a zone change, which again, just like what you said, Commissioner Limo, this is a zone change application. We never really get concept plans. That concept plan was optional to include and courtesy of the applicant and developer to include in. You have had many zone changes before you that never had a concept plan, and we had no idea what they were going to do besides what the uses were in the use table. So this developer, who's a local resident firefighter, came up with this plan. Do note that concept, as we're all aware, he does have to come back in for another ART if he decides to move forward. He'll go through the whole process all over again. It'll be a special permit, another public hearing. We've had plans for the revitalization of Thompsonville beginning prior to 1990. There's over 20 plans. They are all on the shelf. They all have similar visions for Thompsonville, and that's just something to take into consideration. But at the end of the day, your jurisdiction is deciding if whether or not this zone change is appropriate for the location, if you have a POCD finding, and then basically deciding your decision based off all the documents you've received.
Through the chair.
Yep, go ahead.
So again, so by the applicant being upfront and just offering to show us this, we put him in a pickle because he really didn't need to show us this stuff because it's just a zone change. So he was being upfront and wanted to be honest and transparent. All this testimony and evidence comes in, and there's no rebuttal, other than a contradicting statement from the fire chief, saying that it's good, and 5 years ago saying he had an issue with the tunnel closing. Which one do we believe? Do we believe the letter we got from the fire chief a week ago, or a statement he made 5 years ago?
Well, considering how that letter was about something completely different, I mean, it's your decision to go forward, but as your staff, I mean, that letter was about parking lot design at 30% in 2023.
Well, how does this kind of testimony get on the record then?
Public can submit testimony. It's
Mr. Chair, what do we do with the testimony if it's not relevant?
I think if, in my opinion, and I don't know if this is proper from a legal standpoint, but if someone submits a comment to our hearing, then it's a comment to our hearing.
Part of the record.
Okay? Yeah, I mean, it could be incorrect, it could be, just totally wrong.
But I think my point is we have no opportunity to bring the chief in. We have no opportunity to bring the director of EMS in. We have no opportunity to bring in the traffic safety officer. But in a application, a next step here in this process, we would have an opportunity to bring the EMS director in. We'd have an opportunity to bring the traffic sergeant in.
Yeah.
We'd have an opportunity to bring the fire chief in. We can question him directly.
So, just a little clarification. This public hearing doesn't have to close until February 22nd. So if
I'm not
this
arguing
is
that point. I'm just
something-
making my opinion.
If
Thank
you
you.
feel that, I'm just saying is we don't have to close this hearing.
This process does not allow for that. We can't bring them.
It is a public hearing, so we
They
can.
don't have to come.
But they don't have to, but we can ask, we can request, and whether
Oh,
they decide to. So that's, just saying, you're asking for something, and we can request it from the town professionals.
Well, didn't you make a request to the town manager 2 weeks ago? What happened to that? He's not going to respond. He doesn't have to.
Well, you got a response from our fire chief, which was an email that we just got. So that would be his most current decision.
What do you do with this?
That is, when was that? In
I don't know. There's no date.
2023?
Mm.
Or 2023? So times change, things have changed since the thing, the closing of Asnuntuck Street. So we can always ask for whatever else you feel necessary.
I think I've made myself clear my concerns, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Lori?
So this is a public hearing, and the whole point of a public hearing is to allow the public to speak. Now, in so doing, they often will give information that may or may not be verified from staff. So we have to take, you have to take that with whatever confidence you have, or you can direct staff to do further clarification. There's been so many studies, as Georgie referenced, and to me, the most important one currently is the Economic and Community Development Strategic Plan from 2024. And that is when I recall hearing a debate over whether or not South River Street should be TD1 or TD4. They were calling it River Gateway at the time, but it meant the same thing. It's just a terminology of nomenclature. So, and there was a debate, and it wasn't TD4, but it was TD2. I'm sorry, TD2. So, and that allows a lot more uses. The community from South River Street did come out and say they'd rather not do that. It all started with they didn't want to have it all open space and parks. They wanted to have their own community. So, but the other part of that is that this is a transit-oriented development, and there was visions and goals with 5-story, multi-story buildings and diverse housing types throughout the community. So, I mean, you have to kind of take all of this in, and it's a lot to take in, and that's the problem. If you need some clarification on some things, we can do that. If you want more information, we could do that as well. But again, you are just looking at this from a rezoning perspective. So,
Okay, does anyone else have any other comments? Yes, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's worth addressing the comment / concern about the zone change being around a single piece of property, which I acknowledge. I'm sure staff would acknowledge. I'm sure we all would acknowledge. Not ideal, right? I'm sure we would all think that. And I'm gonna look to staff, or perhaps we have the applicant's legal representative to just, I'll ask them to just explain that part as far as legal terms, because that property, 26 South River Street, which would remain TD1, is outside the scope of this application. It's outside their ownership. I don't think they have legal authority to submit for a zone change for that. No. But I'm going to just ask them to clarify that.
Yeah, happy to do that. So obviously, as the town, as every town does, there's only two ways a zone can be changed for a property. One is the owner has to consent to an application to come before this board, or the town on its own planning, right, rezones properties. And that's very different, of course, right? But the only one that can make an application technically to rezone property other than the town is the owner of the property itself. That's sort of the standard. Obviously, we don't own or control the property, so we did not include it as part of the zone change. It can be changed afterwards. We tried to be sensitive in terms of how we would design around it, knowing that it's surrounded by our parcel. We're obviously cognizant of that. In every design we've looked at, we try to sort of take that into consideration, how we can mitigate, make sure that there's not massive buildings next to it, that sort of thing. They're not butted up against it or whatever. And as you've seen from some plans, we will do some significant screening around it to soften the impact. And even on this plan, you can see that we don't expand parking near it. We leave green space. We try to create a green space around it. So, yeah, we don't control it. It's not a spot zoning issue. It's not a technical zoning issue. But we have no control over rezoning it and aren't suggesting that. And frankly, it'll function as it does now as a TD1, and ours is a TD4. It won't create any real conflict. Zones abut, properties abut each other in zones all the time. It's not unusual. Wouldn't been our preference, but that's okay. We're happy to work with it this way. I would say on the issue, I've done obviously a lot of public hearings. Generally, members of the public addressing Commissioner Limo, members of the public basically, as long as it's somewhat germane to the issue, get to pretty much submit whatever they want. Okay, whether it's old reports, old documents, and ultimately it's up to the commission to sort of sort through that. What I would say is that those older documents really relate to the fact that the town wanted to push to keep, not to keep Nuntuck open, but actually it had to be, if it was going to stay open, it had to be improved. Okay, it couldn't stay in its current form, right? The state wouldn't allow that. In other words, if they're going to rebuild this area, right, they're either going to improve it or close it, right? They weren't going to allow it to remain as is. And the town, for a lot of reasons, historic reasons, the fact that it was a second accessway would be good, right? At the end of the day, it was the state that chose to close it despite the sort of pushback from the town. Their decision was that, the one accessway improved is sufficient over the need to do two improved accessways, right? And And that really was the function. So the function of that report was, please don't close it. We think it is better if it were open, right? Much different than our approach, which is we know it's closed, right? And therefore, what's the status? And that I would refer you to the fire chief's current report, which clearly says, and Jason's report, which talks about traffic in that. Would it be better if there were both? Yeah, I guess it would be, but you know, the state is not going to improve the Asnuntuck tunnel. Their decision was improve or close, right? It wasn't sort of leave it, right? So their decision was close it.
Mr. Chair, if I can't.
Did you have something that you want?
Just,
John was kind of.
I had a comment with respect to Commissioner D'Antonio. You know, but lot number 26, by doing that, we would be creating a spot zone, period. I know Attorney Smith doesn't agree with that, but in the zoning world, that's something that you generally try to avoid, is creating a spot zone. So, with respect to the fire marshal's report on the traffic, it's totally contradicts everything that the town standards for subdivision of construction of roads are, and they're designed, and that's for safety purposes. No cul-de-sac or road can exceed 600 feet unless it has a secondary means of ingress or egress, and there's long cul-de-sacs all over the town that meet that criteria. And it can be increased to 1,200 feet with a special vote. Also, the town standard for a road for this area would be 24 feet with a 50-foot right-of-way. I just don't see any way that this South River Street would ever come to those standards, or even close to it. So I don't know what the fire marshal's thinking, but those regulations for town roads are coming or basically with the input of EMS, fire, police, safety, everything. And his comments totally contradict what a town road should be. And I know that this is a pre-existing condition, a pre-existing road that goes back 200 years, but in a development such as this, it's on the developer to propose to get the road to town standards or as close to as much as possible. And I know that we're not even supposed to be considering this, so I don't want to get onto it too much, but I just heard language or some comments before that. Well, maybe the town will widen it later on. Well, it's not up to us to approve a project and put extortion on the town to widen it because we approved it with that caveat that the town will widen it. So that's all I have right now.
Okay. Yes, Lori.
I don't believe that this would be a spot zone because it would still be connected to all of the other TD1 through the road. So I do not believe it would be a spot zone. And the road length is what it is. If it was a subdivision, I think that we should be more concerned, but this would not be a subdivision.
I'm only making a point to what town standard roads are, what they're designed for, and why. So the point is that the fire marshal's letter totally contradicts what the criteria which he believes a town length of a road should be. You're taking a bad situation, you're making it 10 times worse, and he's saying it had no impact on safety. Well, let it be. I'll let him say what he wants to say, but you know, I just don't buy it.
Yeah, I do believe that you're correct, and it's the developer's responsibility to try to do as many improvements as possible, sidewalks, and they could theoretically offer some land towards the right-of-way. But again, we're getting into the weeds of something that is this a use you want here or not?
Frank was first. Frank, you did have a
Yeah,
comment?
well, I just wanted to his comment when he was saying, what you were saying about the evidence coming in. So it's very emotional, so, and people are coming, so you want to be able to take what they're giving us and use it, but it's confusing because you have such a wide difference. And getting to
Understood.
what John was saying, I agree with the improvements, the roads, the sidewalks. But again, I go back to what I was saying before. In this kind of format at a zone change, we can't enforce any of that. We need to get to the next step. And, you know, redevelopment of Thompsonville was mentioned, urban renewal. And I agree with all that. So that's why it's nice to see somebody come forward that wants to do something. And at the next level, it may not go, we may turn it down. They may not meet the criteria of public roads, of safe roads, of sidewalks. I mean, they have a high bar to reach. If this zone change should pass and they come back with a full application, it's not going to be easy. They have a very high bar to reach. And I just think that the way this whole thing went down, we owe it to them to pass the zone change, let them come back and try to climb the big tree.
Ken?
Yes.
I just have one comment, and I think we're getting into the weeds of the site plan or whatever we're going to call it without even thinking about, not without thinking about, but thinking too much about the next step before we're even here, before we're even there. And I think these gentlemen are fully aware of the next step, and in particular after this conversation. They're understanding more what's going to be involved in the next step. So I'm just wanted to make that comment and maybe move forward. Thank you.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, so thank you for clarifying the legalese regarding that 26 property being outside your jurisdiction. I kind of want to get back to that. And just the general, again, we're talking about the zone change, so that's relevant here. The question of whether it's a spot zone is relevant here. I don't think it is a spot zone. Staff concurs. Let's give an example. So like if this were approved, this were all TD4, and then that property at 26 comes in and says, hey, I want to be a TD5, that would be looking like a spot zone because they're in the middle of TD4 and then down the road TD1. And we're like, TD5, where does that come in? That doesn't fit in the area. What we're talking about here is, it's not shown on the current plan, but we all know, we've seen just to the north of here is an existing TD4 zone. So what we're talking about here is expanding the TD4 zone however many feet southward. And yes, it does create that awkward TD1 property, and it's that property owner's full right to keep it in the existing zone, and to of course to not sell their property. So that is entirely their prerogative. But I want to clarify, I by not even remotely close to a spot zone, we're talking about expanding the TD4 zone that's immediately to the north, which makes sense from a continuation of the zone. So I think that's something important we're thinking about. It's butting up against the TD1 zone, which the existing TD4 already butts up against the TD1 zone. We know those two zones are compatible next to each other. We have the railroad behind it, so I mean the zone behind it doesn't really matter quite as much. It does matter, but that's also in the Thompsonville, in Thompsonville mix of residential, and then closer to the center, you get the TD5, which with more mixed use. So again, this is more towards the center, closer to the train station. Transit-oriented development is the big emphasis here, of course. It's part of the town's strategy. It's part of the state strategy, kind of smart growth in terms of, hey, if we're going to encourage development, allow developers to come into town, where would we rather them come develop? We want them to develop in places where they can minimize the impact of vehicles on the road. The best way to do that would be around transit. would be in the walkable areas like Thompsonville. So, if we're talking about, increasing the, potentially increasing the density, this location is very sensible. It would be a completely different story if they're talking, hey, let's make entire South River Street TD4 and build that up. Then that starts, maybe that's other questions. But what's in scope right here? We're like 1,000 feet off the train station, very walkable to the center of Thompsonville. What Thompsonville needs to develop, it needs new development. Like, it needs the money. It needs the money of new developers coming in. It needs fresh faces, people that are coming to walk around town. The storefronts that they bring up, it's a chicken and an egg, right? Nobody wants to invest in renovating empty storefronts and putting in town if there's not enough foot traffic, if there's not enough money. So we are the Planning and Zoning Commission. We're not just thinking about, hey, what's the current state look like of South River Street? We're talking about Thompsonville as a district. We're talking about Enfield at large. So this is potentially, 100 plus new taxpayers to Enfield, 100 plus new customers to local businesses, potential riders on the train, potential neighbors, more Enfield residents that may or may not support us at future zone changes. So yeah, I mean, that's my piece. I appreciate everybody listening. Sorry for winding.
Any other comments from the commission?
Yep.
Joe? Oh, Rob? Okay, sorry.
And what happens if the train station never comes in?
Train station is coming.
Can I comment too?
Yeah, sure. We could sort of answer that. I'm sorry.
Is this better?
Yeah, either way.
No comments from the audience at this time, please?
Just from our point of view, I can confidently tell you that if the train station did not come, there would be no reason for us to do this. This is centered around that. And if that does not happen, for us to make this type of investment without that infrastructure for transit development, we wouldn't do it.
Right. And I'm saying if the train station does not come in, what are you going to do?
What would I do right now?
Hypothetically, zone change gets passed. You submit all your stuff for your buildings, yet that gets all approved. You build your buildings.
Well, I think what I was trying to say is that this process is going to take years to complete, and we're keeping track of the progress of the train, and we wouldn't be investing necessarily in this unless this was being actively built, which, do we know the exact current date of that?
They just continued
It's
it.
2029, and it's definitely coming.
Yeah, I was going to say that the funding has been completed.
It's not here. Until it's here, it's not here.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is they're working up the line. They're completing Windsor Locks. The next one is Enfield.
They just did the SSR designation 2 for the connecting road, so it's 100% coming, as well as some other town projects in that same area that are coming too.
So to me, that
The state has funded it.
Yeah.
So it
is coming.
So, I mean, if you were talking about it 10 years ago and we're trying to do this, you'd have I think that's a legitimate question. Today, I just think it's a fait accompli. And so, I can't think of a reason that it wouldn't happen. Some sort of catastrophic event or an earthquake or something, I guess, but barring something like that, they're building it.
All right, I'm good.
Okay. Joe, did you have a comment?
Well, to piggyback on Commissioner Anderson, all this development is hinging on this train station. Obviously, it's going to happen. It's just not happening soon. But we're shoving so much of this development into Thompsonville on a hearsay of this train station. It's going to be the save-all of everything. Obviously, the neighborhood does not want this to happen, this zone change. And I don't think it fits this neighborhood, to be honest with you. And I think you can still develop this
in the zone that it's in now. May not be as extreme or as dense, which I don't think we need the density there anymore. We're way overdeveloping Thompsonville in my eyes right now. There's so much stuff going on. And market rate, I mean, with the way the rents are now, I think they're gonna have a hard time filling them all up, to be honest with you. And they don't pay taxes. They're renters. They don't pay taxes. They pay car tax if they register their car in the state. But other than that, just the buildings pay taxes, not the residents. So I don't support this at all. Not at all, the change. Nope.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, yeah, Linda.
Having sat through charrettes with the Thompsonville residents and the regulations and the zoning of Thompsonville, I think even with our POCD and the concerns, and we had the experts of Goldman and York come in, and they agreed that South River Street should remain TD1 for a lot of reasons. And I feel at this point, we've had 11 residents come before us who live on this street, which is, when you take that out, there's only 16 houses left on that street. 8 of them are owned by the applicant. They don't want this to happen. And I think we need to consider, we're here not only for planning, but we're here to listen to our residents. They're the ones who have to live here along with us. So they're saying this is not a good fit. And I think that's something we have to consider too. Like I said, I've sat through all the charrettes. I sat through the writing of the regulations of Thompsonville. I sat through the zoning of Thompsonville and the fights that we had and the public hearings that we had. The people of Thompsonville have spoken to us, and I feel that just to say, oh, because one developer comes in, we have to change things. I think we have to stop and think about that. Do we have to stop and drop everything and do all of our regulations based on what our developers want, or do we base them on what our residents want? I think that's a part that nobody's hearing, nobody's talking about. We need to hear what our residents say. And if we ignore what they say, why are we here? Why do we have public hearings? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I'm new here, so forgive if I'm repeating something that has been talked about. But yes, through you. On the train station, I just, would like to remind everybody, ridership on the Hartford line has gone up pretty significantly. It's the fastest growing line in the state. That's not happening everywhere. So to the extent that supports people and thinking about, okay, my confidence this train station is actually going to happen. The riders are there, they're coming, they're increasing trains, they're increasing stations. That's, for example, not happening on Shoreline East. It's not a thing that's occurring. I also believe, and you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, that this probably would be considered a major traffic generator. So the state would probably be or not. Okay. Just depending.
Yeah,
yep.
we wouldn't have to do
A study with OSTA.
SPC,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
We'd have to give it to you guys as part of a site.
Yes.
Special
Yes.
use. Yeah.
So all to say, just in the future, I would imagine there would be further review of traffic. So I just want from others, not just including who's in front of us today. So I would look forward to that. I will say personally, I have issues with the way that this is laid out right now. There are a lot of things I would like to see changed, a lot of conversations about the width of the road, about how we would adhere to complete streets and making everything walkable, cyclable, et cetera. But I do think, personally, I do think we owe it to the future of Thompsonville to at least consider a zone change and work on the site plan when it is appropriate.
Yeah, go ahead.
Linda made me think of something. And what you said was very nice.
talking about listening to the residents. And through the chair to the staff, you were talking about that in the back there along the river, that walkway. It's going to go to the boat landing, correct?
It could.
Possibly.
connect to the
Well, again,
landing.
it's
I mean, again, that's,
we're not talking about a site plan. So
Right.
potentially,
Right.
it's going to go to the boat landing, which is a public park,
Yes.
right? So potentially, the public, the other 40,000 people in Enfield, because we're the planning and zoning for the whole town, the other 40,000 people can drive to the boat launch, get out of their car, and walk along the river. Correct? Is that going to be a public walkway?
Again,
Or-
it can be. We're not opposed to that concept. It's obviously got to be worked through with the town because there's.
Here we are back to the process we're in again.
It's process.
Jesus.
But yes, it has the potential for that.
So somebody mentioned before, I think it was one of the testimony, we have a beautiful natural resource that really is landlocked to
Right.
40,000 people. Only the people that live there can go there.
Right.
Other than the boat land. So we have to listen to our residents, and we heard them loud and clear. But we're the planning and zoning for the whole town of Enfield. This potentially could have river access to everybody that lives out in the other part of town that pays taxes as well. Just, you may be thinking that, but I just wanted to add.
I just have to say, it wasn't just Thompsonville people who came out, it was other town residents that were involved. It wasn't, you're making it sound like only the Thompsonville people. There were other town people there.
I'm talking
that
about this
came.
public hearing.
I know, but I'm talking about the charrettes, the public hearings for these zones.
Here we go with the ex parte stuff again.
But it's not ex parte, it is part of our record. These people came out.
I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go back to something that Terrence said. I was thinking the same thing as he spoke his word about getting down in the weeds. I think we're getting down in the weeds here. I mean, these gentlemen have presented a proposal. This is what they think might work in this area for them, to develop that area, to improve the area, to improve the access to the river. And we're talking about a zone change here. I mean, we're only talking about changing it to TD4. We're not talking about specifically building this building. This is a concept. Okay, so what we need to consider tonight, I think, is it appropriate for a TD4 zone change for this particular area as proposed? And I think that's the only thing we should concern ourselves with, okay? Not thinking about the details and all of that. And appreciate all the public comments. I mean, everybody has a concern. I mean, that's true. But we are looking at the development of Enfield here, and we need to try to improve our areas in Thompsonville. And I think that's a great thing to do. So I think doing this zone change, I think, is actually a bonanza for Enfield to do this and for the Thompsonville area. That's my opinion. However, there are some questions about some of the information we received and all of that. If some of us, and many of us, feel that we need more information, we need some more reconciling of this data, then I think we should put the public hearing back on back on hold, basically, back on the, what do we call it?
Table it.
Back on the table, yeah. Okay. We should table it and try to reconcile some of the questions about the study of the reports, the fire reports, the traffic reports, and so on. So, or we can forge ahead and decide whether we want to accept or reject this. So I'm looking for some consensus here. What would you guys like to do?
I'd like your first, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like your first idea, because if you're saying that
can we ask, since this was put on the record, the head of EMS to say ask her about her statement that was put over on this, the Enfield Police Sergeant, I believe Sergeant, ask, what's on the record now?
Yep.
I don't even know if we could do that maybe staff can tell us, if we can ask them to clarify, because.
Staff, can we do that?
This
Can
was
we ask
from-
them to clarify?
On this testimony, this evidence that was put on the record?
We can certainly attempt
Okay.
and do our best.
Okay.
So, and we could
And I don't know
clarify
what
the
you wanna do with
purpose-
the fire
Purpose
chiefs.
of that letter versus,
Yeah.
Right, but
Yeah.
this was dated January 6th, I believe. I mean, I know the fire chief personally, and his credentials are on the back of this. So, I mean, if anybody wants to rebut what he's saying, I think there was some kind of people questioning what he had to say, so if you want to reach out to Chief Dapkus again, that's, Mr. Chair, I mean, that's up to you.
Well, does anybody else feel we need to do that?
I mean, I think there was some question about his opinion relative to roads and public safety, so I know him, and he's very well versed. I think he did a very good job putting this together, and to question his professional opinion, I think he's owed the opportunity to clarify himself, because it is on the record that, from this dais, his opinion was questioned. So I think that we owe him that, and any other public official that has been brought onto this public hearing. There's a ton of documents here that were presented. So, staff, you have everything that we have. And Mr. Chair, if we could have this stuff researched and brought back to the next meeting.
Okay. Can I have a motion to?
Oh, there, Terrence.
Excuse me? Oh,
Yeah, I was just going to try to, excuse me, clarify Frank a little bit and say all we need is an updated report from, what is it, the sergeant and
Matt Meyer.
EMS, and from the fire chief. We don't need an updated report. We already have one.
But I
That
think
was-
his report was questioned. I'm sorry, his report was questioned.
But if you're turning around now and saying, we need an updated report to move on this project, then get an updated report. It should be the same, I would think.
Doesn't he? I think he closes with, if you have any questions, please feel free to.
And that's the question. I mean, in order to question it, you'd have to say, okay, which way is it? Done.
right, we certainly can do our best with that. Were there any other concerns or questions from any other of the documents?
Well, what is,
I mean, we can show, as we said, there's a lot of studies that were done. We could just, if you want, we could send you the digital copy of the Economic and Community Development Strategic Plan from 2024, if that would help, or if you think you've kind of got it already, perfect. Or any other clarifications?
if I can, Mr. Chair. No, I don't know, sidewalks were brought up. This isn't the right format, right? No, I know, that's what I'm saying, but it was brought up.
It's not the right format.
It was brought up tonight. Sidewalks, road width, road length, all on tonight's record. You gonna clarify that?
And
So
on the
do-
record, we could bring that up on a site plan.
I know that.
And these people have already said that if it was sidewalks were an issue, that they would take care of it. I'm just saying, I'm trying to get us back.
I'm with you, but
does anyone else require any additional information?
We're still talking about a zone change here, and I mean, you know my opinion from last meeting. I think we had a sufficient information to make a zone change determination, but understandably, there were concerns regarding the technical road width was the big one, but also fire safety. The public can present whatever information they want. I mean, to be frank, they can provide with no context. They could provide quotes. They could provide their own opinion. Sure, and it's on us to take that. We did get a very, very recent and very thorough statement from the Thompsonville Fire Chief. That's on the record. The fact that something's on the record from the public doesn't make it the most relevant or the most true or anything. So as far as what we're assessing for the information, what I'm taking is that the fire chief had concerns several years back regarding the potential closure of the Asnuntuck Tunnel with regards to the train station, understandably. And then since that's happened, the years have gone by, the plan has solidified, it's official, the tunnel's closing, the fire chief, the perspective has adapted to it and is saying, okay, well, the Asnuntuck Tunnel is closing. Now, we know with the planned revisions that the Main Street Tunnel will be sufficient as far as fire and safety. So I think what matters to us the most in terms of factual information, in terms of, hey, what is the fire chief saying with regards to this application, is what they put on the record, what they sent us, that very thorough email. I'm not saying that all the information from 3 years ago is thrown out, but you got to take it with a grain of salt because that was a different context and a different time. So, I mean, Frank, would it change your mind if we had, if the fire chief clarified? Would it change anybody's mind? I mean,
I'm good with his most recent letter that we received, but the public put on a record something he said 5 years ago.
And that's absolutely their prerogative, and I think we've all made it clear that that's several years old, and we have a more up-to-date and much more thorough statement from the fire chief.
But we don't want to give them the perception that we're ignoring. They went through doing the research and brought up a quote from the fire chief, and we're just saying, we're not going to pay attention to what you gave us.
Yeah, understandably.
In public,
Yeah, it's a fine balance between working with the public, and I mean there's they came to us with information at last public hearing, and they said, hey, here's some things to think about. We took it back, and then they came to us and said, hey, here's some things to think about. We're balancing that decision. Okay, do we have enough information now? We don't, it's going to come off harsh, but we're not obligated to answer each and every question or concern that the public has. Many of their concerns, most of their concerns, will be covered in the site plan special permit.
Absolutely.
So they may not understand the technical, what's the difference between a zone change and a special permit, what's included here versus there. So
what they entered on the record is going to have more teeth at a...
Exactly.
Right.
And those are things where they're saying, oh, the road width, the sidewalks, the safety, which we took a preliminary look at the safety. Yeah. Those are things that, we'll look in depth, and we're going to say, hey, the public brought up concerns about the road width and the sidewalks, and
right, we can't do nothing about it now.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
We can't do anything about their concerns.
The only way we could do anything with it would be if it were to go forward.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't see why we would drag it out anymore. And I'm with you. I think and Commissioner DeGray, I think the public's input is very important, and we appreciate you coming out here. And we're all working with that. So I mean.
You want to go another meeting? I'm good.
It sounds like if we were to make an inquiry on that, we wouldn't probably get any more information that's correct or incorrect than what we have today.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like to me.
I think we're just missing EMS and...
Yeah, I mean, so we got some information, from the public. We got the information from the fire chief. We have it all. Some of it doesn't agree, but some of it's old. I don't think it's going to change anything at this point. Okay? So I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Sir?
Second.
Public hearing can stay open a little bit longer so we can
They can rebuttal? Sure. Okay.
I'll take my motion off the table.
Yeah, take it off the table for now.
Yeah, to get out.
Sure, okay. Who would like to rebut? Okay, just,
Steve Cogtella, 2 South River Street. We need to set the record straight with Commissioner Alamo. It's not 5 years, sir. Georgie, would you read that letter, the date? I believe it was October 20-something?
October 2023.
Okay, not 5 years ago. I just want to be clear about that. That letter came out with regard to the closure of the Asnuntic Street Tunnel, and they wanted to get input. The state wanted to get input. You explained it quite well. Okay, so the various departments, emergency, medical, fire, police, and so on, provided their input. Okay, that was before Mr. Pinkman even provided this application for a zone change. So what I don't understand is that how could that not be relevant now when it was done at that point in time? And here where he's requesting a zone change that increases the density. There was going to be an issue with these emergency services getting to the people that currently exist there. Here we're asking for a zone change that increases the density, I don't know how many times, to be honest with you. Okay? And so how could that not be relevant as far as these people? And I don't know why the fire chief is backpedaling at this point in time. That document is legitimate, and I believe that Georgie and Lori can verify that. It's a legitimate document, and it's not invalid now because it's 2 years and 2 months old. Okay? It's still valid. So I just want to be clear about that.
okay.
And like I say, that document was done with regard to that closure prior to Mr. Pinkman putting this application in. So here we're putting, like, again, I'm emphasizing, I have to emphasize this because he's talking about increasing the density. We're talking about a zone change that increases the density. So putting more density in there, how's it going to make it more safer for the existing residents and the new residents that are going to be there? And you talked about 40,000 people from the other end of town coming down to the amenities of the river. That's what we need, 40,000 people coming down there. You can't handle what you got down there now. I know that was an expression, Commissioner, but that's my point too. You know, the selling point with these people, and I think that the opportunity with Mr. Talarita here saying that we need to give opportunity to these people. We have already done that with North River Street. We're talking 156 approved, and that'll be 300 total when they get to phase 2 in there, okay? I mean, how much do you need? At least let's see what happens with that first, and then we can do this. I think you're putting the cart before the horse here, well in advance of the horse. So that's what I have to say. But if we're going to be accurate about stuff, not 5 years, 2 years and about 2 months, I believe, somewhere along that line. And you should have corrected him on that as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Monique, 26 South River Street. When I spoke about that letter earlier, I literally said these words. I said, my point of sharing this now is because these same concerns from these 2 years ago, the concerns of danger will be increased. The limited access will be greater risks with another how many units he has. Decreasing safety will be at greater risk for the residents in EMS, fire, and PD. The increased traffic, increased amount of people, increased amount of cars, and less access to come and go could all pose a bigger threat to the community. And that is why I added that letter, because that, I believe, is relevant to now. I hope, is that clear?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments. Yes, sir.
Patrick Talarita, 11 Pearl Street.
Second, could we keep the conversations down in the back, please? Because it's difficult for us to hear. Thank you.
I didn't plan on coming up here, but I'm going to come up here as the chairman of the Thompsonville Fire District to defend the chief and his comments. The chief, when he was speaking 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was with regards to that tunnel being closed and not expanded so that we would have access as a fire department through it. As we sit today, The Thompsonville Fire Department has one truck that can get through that tunnel. We do not have an ambulance in this town that can get through that tunnel. That truck that we have will be out of commission within about 3 to 4 years. And at that point, we will not have one truck that will get through that tunnel. So what the chief was talking about 2 years ago was talking about trying to push the state to expand that tunnel so there would be 2 entrances, not just 1 entrance. That's what he was speaking to. His reassessment of that was based upon looking at today's scenario. And that's what he's looking at it for. And I don't think he was talking about a difference in the way the roadways are constructed in this town with regards to a development. He was speaking to a pre-existing condition. And if we really look at this, looking at that tunnel where it exists right now, it comes out into the driveway for the boat launch. The distance between that road and the distance up to the North Maple Street Road, or North Main Street Road, is a new bridge that was built with greater width, right? Number one, to accommodate fire trucks, because the weight on the bridge was too great and it was a concern, but also to have greater impact going back and forth. So by closing that, all you're doing is you're just really limiting the amount of space that's really changed in that particular area down there. And it's given us greater access because we have greater turning radius to get in there and so forth. And how far is the entrance really from that corner right there that exists right now from the Esnuntuck Street? It's got to be no more than 50 feet that you're coming down the road. We're not going down, or this proposed plan and what the chief was speaking to is not going all the way down to the end of North River Street. It's only going, 50 feet more down the road. And that's what he was speaking to. He wasn't talking and making a comment, I don't believe, based upon what he had said to me about after what he had heard from the meeting with both the residents and with the developer. He wasn't commenting on the total width of that road and the total length of that road and that being adequate. If we were to build today, if you were coming to us today and asking us for the type of roadway, it certainly would exist in a much different scenario than it would today. So I just needed to come up here and defend the chief and what his intentions were. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Talley. Okay, I think we need to, yes, sir.
Patrick Gaskell, 94 South River Street. Commissioner Limo brought up a good point about the zoning. What if you did approve the zone tonight and they got permits to rip down all the houses that are there now, and their investors followed through, and what about the train station if it does come in or whatever, and there's never any houses built there or never any apartments built there, and it becomes another empty lot in Thompsonville, which I have a problem because right now Mr. Pinkman bought 28 South River Street, which is an empty lot, back in 2020, October 2020, and it's been sitting a vacant lot. So I'm not very confident on the building process that he has proposed, because if you accept, and do the proposal of the change of the zone to TD4, you said yourselves, there's no guarantees what he could put there. These are just renditions. They don't really matter. He could put anything or nothing. He could just tear it down, and who knows about the investment? Investors quit. What happens? Becomes an empty lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just think we need to look at the big picture here, that it has its zone change. Walter, yes.
So I've been quiet, but we all got this. Page 3, department comments as of 11/20/25. Planning has a comment here. Building has NA. Engineering has NA. Traffic has NA. Fire has NA. Health has NA. Water pollution control has NA. But yet we got another letter from the fire to amend this. So I think we got all the information we need.
I agree. Okay, can we?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay.
No, we're good. We're good. We don't want to, I think at this point, we're good. Yeah. We appreciate the passion, we really do, and everybody's consideration. And so thank you, and happy to have the public hearing closed.
Okay, we do show of hands?
Or you can do roll call, up to you.
Okay, let's do a roll call on closing the public hearing, please.
Yeah, Ken Helinski,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Frank Alamo,
4.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
and John Petronella is 4.
Okay, the public hearing.
I'm sorry, who made that motion and who seconded it for closing?
Mr. Petronell and
Christian.
Chris made the
Made the motion.
motion, and John seconded it. Okay, do we have the motion for the zone change then?
You want to have any discussion?
Oh, discussion. All right, discussion.
I'll start. I've been down that street. I grew up in Thompsonville. This is kind of my old neighborhood and so forth. That neighborhood, it's an isolated neighborhood, but it's one of the last remaining jewels of Thompsonville. It's well kept, owner occupied, as all the residents have proven, and that's what we want Thompsonville to become. I don't think that we have a mandate with the POCD or the zoning to tear down Thompsonville and rebuild it or burn it down. You know, the applicant showed dilapidated buildings and so forth, all commercial properties. For the most part, that's what needs to be revived. I look at Bigelow, 1988, 400 plus apartments that came in. That did nothing to revitalize downtown Thompsonville. Absolutely nothing. The only thing it revitalized is the property that it sits on. Everything around it's still the same. Pleasant Street, Pearl Street, Main Street. What's changed? Nothing. And that was, what, 30 years ago? So, you know, I think the residents had it right with the town back when they created the district, and the town listened to them, and they got it right. It was TD1, and it's that for a reason. I think it should remain TD1. I still can't get my hands around why that's not spot zoning, but I'll leave that be. And I don't want to get into all the safety things. Let's just talk about, you know, the subdivision. I don't want to get sidetracked, as you know, Commissioner Lynch had said. Let's not get sidetracked with that. I certainly have a hard time supporting this development. I think it's a great neighborhood. I think it's something that we all want all of Thompsonville to be more like. And why tear it down? I just don't understand that. I just don't think that the zone change would be a benefit to Thompsonville. Thank you.
Okay. Linda?
I have to agree with Commissioner Petronella. Bigelow was built. They're supposed to save Thompsonville. There's restaurants down there that are barely hanging on. We have one restaurant that only opens 3 days a week because nobody goes to it except on weekends. We have another one that barely hangs on. And there's some really nice little gem restaurants down there. And I tried to go down to Thompsonville to have lunch or to have dinner. But let's face it, the rest of the town doesn't. And nothing is bringing them down there. And the people that live in Bigelow, they don't even go to the restaurants that they could walk to. One, they can walk right across the street. And the food is superb. They don't even do that. So to say, let's add more apartments because that'll bring more business, the people who live in the apartments, they come, they go, they're going out to the restaurants. They're calling Grubhub or whatever they do today, but they're not. They're doing the fast foods. They're not going out to the restaurants. They're not supporting the businesses that are down there now, that are barely hanging on. So to add more congestion to an area that is a gem, because those houses down there are nice, I agree. I think the residents got it right to keep it as a TD1.
Anyone else? Yes, Christian.
Just basic housekeeping, just to remind everybody, if this were to go forward as a TD4, any use going forward would require a special permit. So even if this fell through, anything that would come forward would still require a special permit. Remember, this is not a guarantee of any sort of density. So our regulations just allow multifamily in TD4. So, you know, they gave us a concept plan to give us an idea. It's not a guarantee. We could talk to them about density and things like that. The only use, actually, interesting public concern about, you know, what if it does fall through and it's vacant land? Well, the one use that doesn't require a special permit is a park and a playground. So the applicant could, you know, turn around and just say, hey, screw it, you know, I'm just going to turn it into a big park and not have to go through the special permit process. But anyway, I don't think anybody's under any illusion that this one zone change or the developments at North River Street are going to save Thompsonville. That's not what this is about. It's about, as eloquently shared, allowing the opportunity for development. If you know, a local developer wants to come in here and has a vision for Thompsonville that is a little bit different from what it previously was, you know, it's totally fair for him to come in here and say, hey, you know, I have this vision. What do you guys think about it? I want to do a little bit more. So it's like, yeah, the residents did speak however many years ago. I wasn't part of that conversation, and totally valid. The residents there said, hey, we just wanted to stay the way it is, and it did, and that's fine. And you know, and now here, a local homeowner, local property owner and developer says, hey, you know, I see a little more potential. That's what we're looking at here. So it's okay for things to change like that. You know, we're still talking, you know, looking most likely at residential use. And yeah, it's not going to save Thompsonville, but a little development here, a little bit development there, a little development more in the center of Thompsonville, the train station, that money coming in from all parts, new residents. Commissioner Moulay, I know you said, you know, renters are not taxpayers. I mean, they're paying rent. The property owner pays the taxes. I mean, so yeah, they're a level removed, but that's a minor technicality. You know, renters can be citizens as much residents of Enfield as property owners. This isn't like the 1700s where you needed to own property to be a proper resident. Renters have just as much say. And we had some renters share input, and their input in the past, you know, perfectly equal to all the property owners. So, yeah, I see potential here. I'd love to see, you know, get cracking on the technicalities during the special permit process if you guys would be willing to go ahead with it, and we can, you know, hash out the road width and see what the applicant's willing to do, you know, public amenities, things like that. So I'm curious and eager.
Okay.
Yes, Frank.
Thank you. So I wasn't going to say anything because I kind of said everything I wanted to say already, but what I want to do is just put my planning and zoning hat on real tight. And just, not that I'm disregarding everything everybody said, but I want to look at this as a zone change and where it is, and look at it like this. I'm going to support this as a zone change because of where it is on South River Street. It's at the north side. The new bridge has been added with a proper new width. We know that. We don't need speculation. We know, I was at a meeting the other night, because I'm on another committee, the underpass is going to get dug down to 13.6. I don't know what the width's going to be, because I know the big blocks are coming out, so it's going to get widened. So looking at that piece of property for this zone, I don't know what the heck is going there. Everything we heard is out of my mind. For a zone change, I'm going to support this as a zone change because of where it is on South River Street, the improvements that have been made to the bridge over the brook, and the improvements that we know are happening to the underpass. I will support this.
I will also support this. I still get back to the thing is I think we're getting into too many of the details here and arguing about the size of the building and so on and so forth. And I think we really need to go back to looking at the TD4 zone. And I think that's a big impetus for us to help improve development in the Thompsonville area. Okay, do we want to read the?
You're all set. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve PH 3139MA South River Street application for zone change from TD1 to TD4 for properties known as 22, 24, 28, 38, 44, 48, 50, and 52 South River Street. South River Realty LLC applicant owner and Matthews Landing LLC owner, map 8 lots 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 21, and 22, TD1 zone. The finding that the commission finds that the application proposal is consistent with the current POCD. And what's the effective date?
You can read that blurb.
Yeah, the zoning map amendment shall be effective after the posting of the legal action ad and subject to the subject map amendment being posted with the Enfield Town Clerk.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Ken Helinski,
For.
Christian D'Antonio,
For.
Linda DeGray,
Against, because of what the residents have said in this public hearing and in the past.
Frank Alimo,
For.
Joseph Muley,
Against.
Terrence Lynch,
For.
and John Petronola is against, and I'm just citing that I feel that this zone is not appropriate for this location. So it passes 4-3.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, next item on the 5 minutes. Can we take a 5-minute break? 5-minute recess. New public hearings? None. Old business stays on the table?
Yes.
Table.
It's SBR 1959. New business?
None.
New
None.
business, commissioners' correspondence? Director? Oh, yeah, congratulations, everyone. She walked out. We'll tell her again. There she is.
There we go.
Yeah, congratulations. We wanted to congratulate you on your appointment,
And welcome you.
and welcome you. We didn't get a chance to do
Wondered
it.
if she had a chance to slow down.
It's going to be a great asset.
I could have just not come back.
Already? You're like, I had enough of that in one night.
Or we could give you our condolences.
Yeah. Okay, Director of Planning report.
Okay, actually, I've got a couple things. At the next meeting, we should be doing review of our bylaws. And we need to appoint for the tax increment financing one member, who I believe right now is Frank.
No, I'm on TIF.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said something else.
I actually said it out, but yes.
Oh, you said the whole thing. Oh,
So,
okay.
and then two liaisons for the Capital Region Council of Government Planning Commission, and I think Christian and John are currently on that, and I don't know if you want to continue or not, but. Okay, so, I mean, we're not doing this now, but I'm just kind of putting it in your heads if anybody's interested, and if you.
I'll continue on TIF at the pleasure of the chair if he would like.
And then we also need one member for the EDC, and I believe, Linda, you are on that.
I'm still on it if that's okay.
Yep,
If you'd
fine.
like, I would stay on it.
That's fine.
Still learning, still.
So we have an opening on the other commission?
The RPC. I'm happy to stay on the RPC, but.
We need two on the RPC?
There's a primary and alternate.
Two on CROG,
Yeah.
CROG.
Yeah, the
Regional Planning Agency, yes.
These acronyms are getting us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need another one.
I'm happy, yeah, I'm happy to
So
stay.
yeah, if
stay
John's stepping down, then we'll need another one. And again,
okay.
we're not
I thought
going
we
to do
had-
it tonight,
Until
but start
March.
thinking about it.
Yeah, March is the first meeting.
Mr. Chair, I really like TIF because a lot of it has to do with Thompsonville, and there's a lot of exciting things coming that are going on, that, some of the stuff that hooks into what we were talking about tonight.
That's fine.
And staff mentioned about some new projects that are going to be coming along. And
I have a list if
Yeah,
you
we-
want to ask.
Yeah, well, let everybody know. I mean, really exciting things are happening.
You are
and,
so appointed.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I like it. It's interesting.
I have facts.
Okay, and so then we'll need to find one more person for the Regional Planning Agency through CROG.
Anybody interested?
Think about it. You have
And
2
you
weeks.
can ask me questions.
And then one for EDC. I don't know, Linda, if you want to try to
Darren said
continue.
he'd let us know at the next meeting.
Okay, there you go. So.
He's first in line.
So this is why I'm saying it tonight, so you could all think about it. Guys and gals, 2 gals. Yay. I just want you to be aware of the Enfield Business Roundtable, number 3, to be held February 5th from 5:30 to 7 downstairs in the Skidco Room. Topics include community initiatives, Thompsonville revitalization and funding, America 250 celebration, and Enfield Connects Coalition. So if you'd like, I could send you the flyer on that. Let's see, what's the next one? Badges. You need stinking badges.
Yes, we need badges.
Yes.
So, does anybody actually get the badge last time we brought this up?
No, it never got completed.
Nothing ever happened.
Okay. We're going to make sure that something happens.
That'd be great.
We had a whole email chain we all responded to, and it
I
just
don't
kind of
know
died
what
on
happened.
It died on the branch.
Died on the vine.
Okay,
Okay, so
Enfield
everybody
Business-
wants a badge.
Everybody
Yeah.
wants badges. So I'm going to
Except
send
me.
you.
I have one.
You have one.
You do have
Does
one.
it work on the
Okay.
door?
No.
So we'll send you something. I'll have to work it out with the
We'll look
badge
to see
people.
if we can get them to work on the doors.
The badge people are.
Is it a fob? Oh, I thought it was the badge.
That's the
Oh,
fob.
that's separate.
School.
All right,
This
so we
is
can do them
this
separately. right?
thingy, your badge for site visits.
Yes, but
Okay.
it will not let you open any doors, though.
Unfortunately, you would have to go with
Except for
town
meeting
manager.
people.
So you have to have the fob.
Yeah, you would need this thingy. You're 2-in-1 now.
Yeah,
This thingy.
no, yeah.
So, all right.
No,
so-
the
so-
the badges that we're
Hold on
talking
a second.
about are
Does
strict.
anybody have an issue with not being able to get into the town hall at oddball times? Would anyone have a need for a fob?
I come in the front door now, and
Okay. Okay.
what I heard is,
Okay.
when I asked about a fob, I heard that'll never happen for us.
Well, all right.
So
If it's not an issue, if it's
The
not an
badges
issue-
we speak of are for identification only. For instance, if you're doing a site visit for an
Okay, I mean, I
application.
think that's a good thing to have.
Yeah. Now, don't we really should have that if we go on somebody's property, or?
Yes, you
Yeah.
should.
You probably should, so you know.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, because
Yeah.
I've had to use.
Yeah,
it.
right, if we're gonna go
And
on-
when I knock on
knock on-
someone's
right.
door
Yeah.
to walk their property, I always show them my badge.
Yeah.
So it's always nice
Okay,
to
so
have some
sounds like regular
proper
badges are fine.
identification.
Good.
So we're gonna take care of that. Oh, and I emailed you. Invite. Oh, I emailed you an invite from Adam Winstanley to go to the open house this weekend on Sunday, 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at 67 Middle Road. So this is the house that they built
That's
without a basement.
the slab house.
Yeah. So I emailed it all to you, so you don't need to write it down or anything. You
great.
should all
Today you
have it.
did?
Pardon?
Today?
Today.
Okay, well, we'll see if it works. 4:40.
Got it, too, look at that.
Look at that.
It's just
Okay,
Sunday. It's just Sunday.
and as far as zoning regulations are concerned, the commercial vehicle subcommittee met. We had a really good conversation, and we made a lot of progress. Our staff member, Steve Heine, has been working on the actual wording of it, and so we'll be setting up another meeting soon, just so we could kind of finalize where we want to go for proposed changes. And then staff is also going to meet tomorrow, and we're going to go through all of the zoning regs and try to figure out where we truly stand. And if there's, what I'm thinking is, like, for instance, maybe we don't want to tackle Thompsonville regulations right now, or some of the housing right now, and get the rest of it updated and approved, and then we could do each section separately afterwards. But we want to like, just, because staff has been going through every page like once a week or more, and we've just made a lot of changes, nothing major, but, wordsmithing and stuff like that. And we need to see exactly where we're at. So we're going to do an assessment and.
Is Don well now? Is he back? Don Poland?
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
good.
back.
'Cause I know he was
he's
sick
back. He still has some issues with his eye, but
Yeah. He's well? Good.
I talked to him about a month ago,
Oh,
and he
good.
was really busy. But we were going through all this before we wanted to send it to him anyway.
Glad to hear he's okay.
So,
ahead.
Lori, I
they're-
just have one question. After you go through it, are you running it through Chat CP? Is it CP? Whatever that is.
Chat GPT.
Thank you.
What?
Yeah.
You want us to AI it?
Well, I'm just saying, it does help.
Done that, huh?
That's all we.
Yeah, I am.
Talk back
You know
to
what? I'd
Yeah.
be scared to do it because you can't really rely on that.
Okay. No, I'm just curious.
Sorry.
it? This thing's weird.
It is weird, but it does.
It would be interesting,
it does
though.
help you write something.
You can do it,
Oh,
Yeah.
just to see what it looks like.
don't do it.
No, I'm
Don't
not
do
doing
though.
it.
It's like we've got so many versions.
You
as
do
it
know,
is.
you did ask, what you just did, right? You do know I'll do that, so. Even though I said I'm not doing it, I will do it.
Don't do it. Refrain.
Okay, and then I just also wanted to personally welcome Laura Anderson. And I don't know if you want to tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you
Put
guys.
you on the spot, sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited about this. I have lived in Enfield with my husband, Chris Reno from Inlands and Wetlands. He says hello to all of you. And Chris Reno is my husband on Wetlands. So we're just excited to be involved in town. We've only lived here since 2019, but it's been really wonderful, really exciting. I was living in Hartford and he was living in Chicopee when we met. So Enfield was a nice, natural place. So Yeah, so really, really happy to be here after we moved into our first apartment. You know, we decided to buy our house here, everything like that. And this is, I don't know, we talk about land use at home. It's fun for us. So this is really exciting, really nice, and really good discussion to open up with. Full disclosure, I work for the Department of Transportation. So some of this was pretty familiar today, so it was a nice ease in. So anyway, happy to be here.
Nice to have you. That's what I got. I heard about where you worked, and I was like, yes.
Yeah,
All right.
I did too,
Now
yeah.
we can get some roads widened.
And you're from Wisconsin.
Oh, yes.
And maybe a traffic light.
I
At
went
the
to
high school. Walter wants a traffic light.
Laura, what made you want to move back to Enfield? What attracted you back here?
Well, originally I'm from Wisconsin. I lived in Hartford. So we moved here together
As
in
a-
2019.
Like, why?
as a couple, yeah. We looked at houses in a bunch of different places, but we, I don't know, it was in between. It was nice, easy on and off the highway, easy for us both to get to work. And, you know, we have some friends here, so it made sense. We ended up finding a house right down the street from Kristen's college best friend. Worked out.
It's warmer here than Wisconsin.
Yeah, everything is warmer than Wisconsin. Everything. Just a little icier and a little more condensed on the roads.
I was out there one time for work. And the guys said, we're not working tomorrow. We're like, why? It's Tuesday. They said, first day of hunting season.
First
We're not
day of
working. I was like, what? They were serious.
Oh, yeah.
True that, I went to school there.
Yeah.
First day of hunting season. Well,
Pennsylvania closes first day of hunting season.
yeah, I was like, wow.
My nephew got baptized on Blaze Orange Sunday, where everyone was supposed to wear orange, and like we blessed the hunters. Until people hear that, they're like, "Really?" I was like, "Yes, it's very."
I learned on a trip there is really a such thing as moonshine.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way.
Okay, anything else, Lori?
I have two things, if you're done.
I'm not done.
Georgie?
Okay, I thought you were done.
I'm going to go through all the rest of this.
All the rest of what?
Authorization for admin.
All my stuff.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I have an
didn't know you had
update. I
stuff.
told you I had two things. I have two things for you guys. Do you remember the Gold Star Autos application? Yeah, now you remember. About when you asked for a courtesy for the applicant to investigate putting a tree in the DOT right away. They did do the courtesy measure. They did reach out to DOT, and DOT denied them. DOT does not want any landscaping in the sightline area, and I just wanted to report that they did follow through with the courtesy measure as requested, and he is preparing to open. Second thing is Frank had asked me a wonderful question about upcoming projects in Thompsonville, and I have facts for facts, and I want to list them out because I worked really hard to get these facts, so why not share them? You may know some of these facts, as all of it is public knowledge. The Main Street RFP program went out on January 5th for winter bidding. It's a streetscape redesign. It includes a phase 2 as well, which will be the bike path project is proposed to be canceled on Franklin and Enfield Street, and instead will be on Pearl Street, and will be improving sidewalks, signage for wayfinding, and trail connecting. This will be on the town council agenda on January 20th, as I've been advised. It's about a $2 million project, a little bit less. So that is coming to Thompsonville. The next one is the upcoming evaluation that we're working with COG on for a Thompsonville parking garage. They are exploring solutions and alternatives to find a good spot with COG. Train station you know about, it is coming in 2029. Boat launch improvements are in the works. We are applying for grants with DEEP currently to help with funding those improvements. And the last one I have is the pump station that is right next to the Donald Barnes boat launch. There are upgrades in talks. There is a potential relocation to the other side of the tracks where the pump out is by Asnuntuck Street. This would potentially allow us to reuse that parcel for the boat launch. New piping is proposed and upgrades. They are currently working on a study to analyze overflows to help with project funding. There have been 2 proposals received to WPC as of today. They are meeting with those candidates next week. The infrastructure in T-ville is old, but not necessarily failing. It's about 100 to 150 years old. I got all this information today from WPC and Economic Development, and it's just awesome to hear that these things are in the background, even though you might not always see them at the forefront. And you'll definitely see the Main Street program on Town Council's next agenda as long as they decide to keep moving forward with it. And just wanted to share.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, Mr. Chair, if I can,
Go ahead.
on the boat landing, did you hear about the big blocks that are under the underpass?
Yes,
I forgot that part.
big blocks. The big blocks are coming.
Yeah.
There's another idea that's in the works, but I'm going to save that for the person who's working on it since they have the knowledge and expertise.
Yeah.
But there are other things that just aren't yet solidified. There's still talks.
Don't steal the blocks.
Don't worry about the blocks.
Okay.
But there are ideas, and staff is dedicated, and we've been working on it silently in the shadows while you've been doing your everyday life.
A lot of good things happening.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
Walter, go ahead.
So you mentioned Franklin Street. Back when they were repaving 190, they paved Fruit Terrace. And I asked at the time, why aren't you paving Franklin Street? Oh, because there's a project coming. Well, project got canceled. Get the state to repave Franklin Street because there's a bunch of potholes on there.
Potholes?
Yeah.
Gonna be a gravel road.
I know. And it should have been done 2 years ago when they did Fruit and 190, but they did not.
I know, I drive down it every Sunday.
Yeah, me too. I'm with you.
Yep.
We got ripped off.
Are you done?
Yes, ma'am.
You guys done with, you have anything else? You all set?
I was just going to go finish the agenda if you want.
Okay. Authorization for administrative approvals, SPR 1962, 103 Phoenix Avenue.
Yes, this is an application for administrative approval for Integrity Martial Arts Studio. Jonathan Metcalf, applicant, Artioli Brothers LLC owner, map 46, lot 27, I-1 zone. So Mr. Metcalf will be reopening his martial arts studio from his present location in the mall, what's left of the mall, to this new location. His training facilities are permitted with the site plan in an industrial zone, as there are no outside modifications and plenty of parking. We received an okay from our previous chairman, DeGray, to approve this through admin approval. So there literally is nothing going on outside of the building. It's all internal. So, and he's found a good spot. So that-
Okay, question?
Yep. Is this part of a relocation effort for some of them tenants that were still left in the mall? Is this a coordinated? Because
Well,
people were
it's-
saying, what are those poor people in the mall going to do? Is this help to the
They
tenants?
have tried to coordinate together to find places that they could, a number of them could go into, but that was getting to be unsuccessful, and so Mr. Metcalf found this spot and decided it was good for him.
Good. Well, I was hoping that they were going to be able to get everybody relocated.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's hard, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
every time they come in, we try our best to help
Yep.
verify their new proposal. And Integrity Martial Arts has been looking for a long time.
Well, that's good.
We have gone over location with John, and the regs they're difficult for
Yeah.
the small businesses sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he finally found a spot, and we're like, all right, let's see what we can do.
Great. Good.
So-
Good. Thank you.
Okay, so are we okay to authorize this?
It's kind of more of a report.
Okay.
So then applications to be received are public hearing number 3140, 14 Cranbrook Boulevard, application for special use permit to expand nonconforming use to allow for a tow truck. Mandeep Singh, applicant, SAM plus ZAK LLC owner, map 56, lot 33, BL zone. And SPR 1962, which is what we just heard. This is a receipt of 103 Phoenix Avenue, application for administrative approval for Integrity Martial Arts Studio. Jonathan Metcalf, applicant, Artioli Brothers LLC, owner, map 46, lot 27, I-1 zone. And that's it.
Walter, you're up, man.
Okay,
We just got it today, right?
hang on. Opportunities to unresolved issues. None? Executive session, no executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for our beautiful first meeting.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Adjourn.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Why do I keep saying approve? I did that last meeting too. Motion to adjourn.
Okay. For the record, it is 10:12 p.m.
Oh, man.